to what would happen. And we are seeing, just as we, this is no prediction because you're literally just looking at the geopolitics and understanding how things and time work. And it's just unfolding in the very same way that we expected it to unfold. When Pope Leo the 14th took office, we did a whole segment on him in this program, where we talked about not just him, but Pope Leo the 13th. And one of the things that we talked about was not just Pope Leo's look-alike, because he looks like a reincarnation of Pope Leo the 13th, and that's interesting, isn't it? As a matter of fact, look like him come back. But the extent to which both he chose that name, Leo, understanding deliberately, and he did say that, understanding that he was coming in as Pope at a time when there would be phenomenal changes. So we saw with Pope Leo the 13th at the First Industrial Revolution and his encyclical, and now we're seeing Pope Leo the 14th. So Pope Leo the 13th, his encyclical, which we talked about, is a Rerum Novarum. Remember, we went through that, right, where he was looking at safeguarding labor, safeguarding human labor, because we were going into the machine age. And now Pope Leo the 14th has come in this time to say, with his Magnifica Humanitas, which was published on May 25, it was signed on May 15, 2026. It's interesting because Pope Leo the 13th, his encyclical, Rerum Novarum, was signed on May 15, what was the year again? 1891. May 15, 1891. And here we have Pope Leo the 14th with his encyclica entitled Magnifica Humanitas, which was signed on the 15th of May, 2026. Very, very interesting. And he's focusing on safeguarding humanity in the time of AI. I can tell you, though, all of it is smoke and mirrors. Every single bit of it is smoke and mirrors. They're fooling themselves. They're fooling none of us. So read to know, read to understand, but don't buy into their savior complex and their concern. They're all a part of the whole new economic world order, reptilian, Nephilim, you name it, globalist hypocrisy. They're all a part of it. Aliens, you name it, they're all part of it. And so each of them doing what they are supposed to be doing in this time. And listen, if you don't believe me, go and look at Pope Leo the 13th. Just Google Pope Leo the 13th and Pope Leo the 14th and tell me if him not come back. Tell me if him not come back. Peter, you can find them. Honestly, tell me if him not come back. We said that the last time we were here, but we weren't streaming live to show you for those who are watching on YouTube. So you can watch us on YouTube. Remember, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. But if you look at Pope Leo, and me alone, we talked about it before. Pope Leo the 14th and Pope Leo the 13th, just Google them and look at the resemblance. So they are who they are, you know. They're coming. These are the people that Enoch talked about. They're in the book of Enoch. Anyway, we don't want to get off because we have a whole lot to talk about. The papal bulls. One of the things that the Pope also did, Leo, was he apologized for the Roman Catholic Church role in slavery. Right, so people are arguing that he's not the first to do it. And that might be true. He's not the first to do it, but he's the first to do it in the way that he did, which was to take it out of broader Christianity, broader church, to say that the Roman Catholic Church was responsible for encouraging, authorizing, and was deeply involved in the enslavement of Africans and the transatlantic trade in Africans. So he came out and he did that. They're apologizing for slavery left, right, and center. They're not paying reparations. And when they pay reparations, it's really interesting how they're doing it. Because if you know, there's a story, for example, in the Gleaner yesterday, and I think Prof. Shepherd also had a discussion with the one of the representatives from the Lloyd's Registry yesterday on her program. So there is a form of reparations that is being made available to universities. I looked for that for a while, universities in Jamaica. And so they have, remember, this has been on the table for a while. And so I think now they have said, how much money it is. And they have also had... let me do Gleaner. They've also had, people in Jamaica now talking about it. And if you watched and listened to Professor Shepherd yesterday, you'd have heard that discussion. Really excellent discussion. Professor Shepherd, as usual, is classic. But you know how we feel about all of that, right? And we don't intend to talk about it today, but why can't I find it today? I've been reading. Okay, here we go. Jamaica institutions and, right. It's on the Gleaner. I'm not sure if you can bring it up, Peter. It's on the Gleaners. It says Jamaican institutions gain slice of 200 million slavery research fund. And we have... this is a Facebook post. It says Jamaican institutions and scholars are among beneficiaries in the Caribbean and West Africa of £450,000. That's 91 million from the UK-based Lloyd's Register Foundation, part of a wider £1 million pound or $203 million grant to advance research into the history of the transatlantic trade in Africans. So the headlines in the Gleaner is Jamaican institutions gain slice of 200 million slavery research fund, and you'll see a few people standing there. British High Commissioner to Jamaica is there, and others. Jamaican institutions and scholars among beneficiaries. The funding, announced on Wednesday at the British High Commission in Kingston, forms part of the Passage International Research Mobility Program. Passage, which stands for the Partnership for Atlantic Slavery Scholarship, Archiving and Global Exchange, supports collaboration between archivists and researchers in the Caribbean, West Africa, and the United Kingdom. It aims to widen access to records of enslavement, strengthen archival partnerships, and deepen local interpretation of history as it continues to shape the Caribbean and beyond. Speaking at the launch, the British High Commissioner to Jamaica, Alicia Herbert, said the funds would be directed to projects in the Caribbean and the West Africa. So that's something to pay some attention to. So there, a lot happening. We as Africans remain mindful of the central role of Western Christianity and not least the Roman Catholic Church and religious institutions in the colonization, in the enslavement and colonization of Africa and Africans. And we have not forgotten. We will not forget. We are not about to forget. And it's going to be, the dues will have to be paid one way or the other. As Mutabaruka says in his poem, by the ballot or the bullet, any which way, freedom must come. So we were talking about the papal bulls, right, by Pope Nicholas V to King Afonso V of Portugal. The Dum Diversas was on June 18, 1452, and the Romanus Pontifex was on January 5, 1455. And these papal bulls sanctioned the doctrine of discovery, which they're still doing now. As a matter of fact, the doctrine of discovery is being wantonly used by the United States under Donald Trump, but not Trump alone. George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Biden, and as far back as you can go, Kennedy, Lincoln, every single one of them. So, and the doctrine of discovery was to conquer lands. These are the papal bulls, And these were, look at the dates, 1452, 1455. So just mark the dates. And these papal bulls sanctioned the doctrine of discovery to conquer lands, enslave indigenous populations. Remember what happened to the Tainos? Okay. Kalinagos, Garafunas. Just think. So to conquer lands, enslave indigenous populations, and serving as a legal and moral justification of the transatlantic trade in Africa, and the transatlantic slave trade. You found Leo. That's Leo 13, right? Right. And you see me have to ask you, I'll do him just so. Have you seen Leo? I think if you, right, so that's Leo 13. Am I right or am I right, Peter? Have you seen Leo? Because if you, okay, that's Leo 14. Did he come back? They look alike. If you're watching on YouTube, there is a resemblance, a very, 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 very clear resemblance. So that's an aside. That's another conversation to be had. So yeah, when he's coming out now to talk about to apologize for slavery and the Roman Catholic Church, the role in slavery. Oh, did I take a break? No? Let me quickly do that. 6, and we were telling you about what's up with the Roman Catholic Church. Interesting. The apology from the Pope, and we hear that. It doesn't mean anything to us, really. No apology, no mean nothing. Reparations is what we're talking about. So I know that from an academic perspective and I suppose legal perspective to some extent, the apology is required, right? So you do the apology, then, and I'm not even sure if it's required, but then you do the apology, then you pay reparations. But they never pay reparations. They just apologize and move on. So we're not jumping up and reveling in anything. We see France doing a whole lot of stupidness too. And I say stupidness because it doesn't matter to us one way or the other, repealing laws that they've had in place from how when France is doing what France is doing because Macron is afraid, because France is running scared, because as Mitterrand said, I think it's Francois Mitterrand, who said that without Africa, there would be no France. And then Ibrahim Traoré said that too, literally to Macron's face, which is to say, you wouldn't exist without us. Remember that. So now they recognize that so-called Francophone Africa, the part of Africa that they have been bleeding, that they have been the cancer on, is now saying, no way, no how, no way, sir. And so that they've come out now to say, oh, we are going to repeal laws. You're repealing laws that have been on the book from how long? Where you said that people were not human beings, African people were not human beings, and you're making and you're announcing that we do not care. So keep that to yourself. We know who we are. You don't have to tell us who we are, but we must. And then we also have France, Macron injecting himself now in Ghana. The big reparations conference we told you about. Now we hear Macron says that he's going to be attending that conference. And you know what's interesting about that? Ghana has to be very careful at what Ghana is doing, because I think he's going to be on the stage at that reparations conference, which I was planning to go. No, I'm not going anywhere as long as Macron is there, because what is that if Macron is on the stage? And so we, and then he was just in, where was he? Kenya last week, or was it Senegal or someplace? Taking the microphone and going on stage and making a fool of himself. So here we have him now, coming out talking about repealing laws that have been on the books forever, saying that Africans are less than human beings, and now you're announcing that. And talking about you're going to be assisting Ghana with reparations. What kind of foolishness is that? And then Ghana, as I said before, has to be very careful how it goes. I know it's dancing, it's walking a tightrope. Ghana is walking a tightrope. Everybody's coming at Ghana. And so that is something that is for Ghana to decide how Ghana is going to manage this. But we're watching very closely. Then there's also the situation of the Arab slave trade in Africa, which started in the 7th century and continues even till today. So we have a lot to talk about and a lot to pay attention to, because now they're calling it human trafficking. It is still slavery in Libya, in Syria, and you see, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama destroyed Libya. because they couldn't have a successful African country. So they destroyed Libya, and they couldn't have a successful Africa. And we have Syria being destroyed, and a lot of those areas. Now you have in these Arab countries slavery. And slavery is connected back to the UAE, by the way. I know I'm saying a whole lot of things at once, but when I'm through here, do your own research. So slavery is connected back to the UAE. And the UAE is very, very active in Sudan. You see that there is one of the worst genocides in the world is happening in Sudan. UAE is very active in the Congo. Congo has the worst genocide right now in the entire world. And that is why you have Ebola and other diseases coming out of a space where there is genocide, where millions die per month. Millions are dying, where there's wanton rape and viciousness against women and girls and children. Stoked and fomented by mercenaries of the West and faced and fronted by the UAE. This is basically how things are unfolding. The geopolitics of it is very interesting. Everything is connected, every bit of it. Ethiopia is having elections tomorrow, I think, and Abiy Ahmed is tipped to win, and I think he should win. We hope that he wins because he's doing some really great work there. But he's also fighting for Ethiopia's sovereignty, fighting for Ethiopia's life in the whole geopolitics of it. As Israel is moving into Somaliland, take out your maps. You see, we're talking about a part of Africa that if you do not understand what we're saying, you're going to lose focus, because all of the areas we've mentioned so far, they're bordering on each other. So if you're coming from the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, Somalia, Somaliland, Eritrea, coming down, you're into Egypt, into Sudan. We're talking about bordering countries. We're talking about countries that are pretty close to each other. And how these are fighting now for waterways. They're fighting just for their life, fighting to preserve sovereignty. This is what is happening on the continent of Africa. We heard that Somaliland is about to set up an embassy in Israel. That is fascinating. All right, so there's a lot to talk about. The Western Christian and Western Christianity institutions right now are anticipating their relevance in the New World Order. They are preparing a big... Have you heard about JC 2033? JC 2033 is a massive conference that Christians are planning, because they say this 2033 represents the 2000th anniversary of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so Easter 2033 in Geneva, Switzerland, the same place where Davos is, right? In Geneva, Switzerland. This is the headquarters, all of the planning happening there. But the World Church, the World Council of Church is involved, the Catholic Church is involved, the organization. I mean, almost all the churches are involved in this massive thing that they're planning for 2033. They say 2033 Easter will be the 200th anniversary of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. There's also... 2000th, thanks Peter, the 2000th anniversary of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So they're also planning, there are discussions on, it's not even the periphery, the central to all of this is a discussion of the return of Jesus Christ. So 2033, and then there's Agenda 2030. Everything is connected. We don't have time to go into all of it, but do your research in the meantime. We are paying attention, as I said before. Some of these issues we'll be discussing with Muta later on today. We'll be at the Renewal Village in St. Mary, and it's a reasoning with Muta as we look at where we are in the wider sphere of things, and tap into Muta's philosophy as a sage, as a wise sage who's been looking at these and have been predicting and just analyzing over the years how things would unfold, and we're seeing things unfolding as he has been saying. Not only that, Muta has been a part of the very fabric of Jamaica's and African diasporic philosophical scholarship, if you will, because this is, Somuta has been in the space as a poet long before he was a radio broadcaster. And if you listen to his poetry, I wonder if I can find that one I just quoted, By the Ballot or the Bullet, and take a break and come back and play that. But if you listen to Muta's poetry just along his entire trajectory, you understand that this is more than just, I know people say dub poetry, this is no dub poetry. This is philosophy, this is philosophical reasoning at the very highest level. And sometimes it is long after our philosophers have gone and decades and decades and decades, we begin to say, oh, he was a philosopher, but our philosophers are with us. Muta is one such who is with us as a philosopher, as a sage. And I know that people say folk philosopher. I refuse to say that because why do we need to say that? We do not need to say that. We're talking about a wise sage, and we are very happy that Muta has agreed to be with us and the same. All right. Quite a bit happening, and I know we're going to talk about Cuba this morning because there is a blockade of Cuba still, and there is one of the largest warships is out in the ocean, Nimitz, that's heading to Jamaica right now. It should get here today, the 31st. It's going to get here tomorrow, and people are connecting that to Cuba. Of course you should connect it to Cuba because a similar thing happened with Venezuela. But for me, it's more than Cuba. It is to warn the entire Caribbean. You see, because Cuba is easy. Cuba has been under this blockade for a very, very long time. There was a show of force over the weekend with soldiers from Guantanamo Bay, U.S. soldiers meeting Cuban soldiers, and everybody's in uniform, and there was a whole lot of military maneuvers. So we're supposed to be frightened by that. We're not frightened. On behalf of Cuba, we're not frightened. Thing about it is, as we watch what is unfolding, we're still very aware of the threat to Cuba. So we're going to be talking about Cuba in a while. So stand by for that. The Ebola pandemic, they're trying to make it a pandemic, right? It's an epidemic right now. They want to make it into a pandemic. That is still raging. So we see the WHO heading to, where is he? Is it the Congo or so? He's gone to one of those places. But so we're paying some attention to that. Also, we're going to be joining at 7 o'clock our good friend Prime Eye, who will be coming to kind of keep us up to date, bring us up to date with what's happening on the continent of Africa, focusing specifically on Jamaica-Ghana relations, but looking wider on some of the other issues. Prime Eye is Mutala Muntari, our brethren, Prime Eye from them days. We have done so many simulcasts with Prime Eye over the years. So he's coming back at around in 10 minutes' time. He's a Ghanaian media strategist, broadcaster, and Pan-African thought leader. He has over 2 decades of experience shaping public discourse across radio and television. So we're looking forward to hearing from him later. So we're watching, as I said before, what's happening with Ebola. I see the government of Jamaica has come out to say that there's no Ebola in Jamaica, and I think they had to say that because I think there was a discussion about some people who were pastors who had traveled to Uganda, and there was this chatter in Jamaica because you know how it goes. But I hear where the government of Jamaica has come out to say there's no Ebola in Jamaica. Listen, the Ebola whole epidemic thing, they're trying to make it into a pandemic. They need a disease X. And this is why we're seeing all this flurry around Ebola. There's a genocide in the DRC. Millions of people are killed and left to die on the streets So there's Ebola, there's cholera, there's every single disease under the face of a sun. They do not talk about the genocide, but they talk about Ebola because they're searching for a pandemic. We're not buying into what they're selling. We know Depan, we're in Depan. It's simple. We're not buying into what they're selling. We understand the strategy they're using. And it boggles the mind that the World Health Organization, with all its resources, haven't managed to stem Ebola. You pick out one disease from the many, many diseases, and this is one you choose to talk about. Why? Because you're searching for a pandemic X. But if you have a genocide, not just in one country, you have a genocide in the Congo, DRC. You have a genocide in Sudan, where bodies are left to rot on the ground, where there's no electricity, no running water, no access, where it's just war upon war upon war, funded by the West, driven by people like the UAE. Are you telling me that out of all the disease is Ebola you pick up on because you know that people are going to be scared about Ebola and you're searching for a pandemic X, but not today, colonizer. Not today. You tried with hantavirus and we all collectively said, no, you're not doing that again. So now you've gone to Ebola. Well, not today. Not today. We're not going to be fooled by that either. What we should be saying is we have to put a stop to the wars. We have to call out the hypocrisy, the genocide, the violence. We have to call out the killing, the murder, the rapes. We have to call these out, which really are part and parcel of the plan to create chaos, to move into the new world economic order, because they're moving into that. And listen, I talk about these things not because I support this new world economic order or artificial intelligence, which I call anti-intelligence, because AI, the A in AI really stands for anti, if you look at it, not the artificial, no. It's anti-intelligence. So it's not to say that we support any of these, it is basically to say that we recognize what is coming. And how do we prepare ourselves for survival and to thrive? These are some of the conversations we're going to have with Muta today. We're going to talk to Muta about some of these issues also as we reason at the Rio Nuevo Village. Remember to join us at Rio Nuevo Village at 12 o'clock. We go through until 4. And remember, we're not going beyond 4 o'clock. We're not going beyond 4 o'clock. So don't say you can reach after 4 and we'll still be there. No, we're wrapping up just a little bit before 4. So do not come after 4. Where is the okay, so people are asking, how do you get to Rio Nuevo Village? Peter, I forgot to get a direction because I'm not good at this, All right, so Peter, listen, man, you name Peter Broadway. Open your microphone and give us a direction. So it's easy to find, by the way, very easy. Yes, Peter, coming from Ocherius, how do we find it?
Coming from Ocherius, when you reach to Rio Nuevo, there's a Cool Oasis gas station. You pretty much turn into the Cool Oasis and then drive through it, and on the other side you...
In the UK, yeah, she says, got it, 5H2HZTV. Good, Donnie. Thank you so much. And let me see what Elaine says. Many people are killed and left on the streets to die. Yes, we understand, though, and that's so serious. Just to comment on that. And K. Dot says, Great Rising Kabu, thank you, my brother. He says, with reference to the latest apology from another pope, when will all our treasures from under the Vatican be released then? And he says, sorry, cannot buy another soldier lorry. Western religion is just planning various ways to remain relevant. I tell my people when they read King James' book to replace the name Jesus and Lord with the word consciousness and see what happens. Black people need to wake up. Thank you, K. Dot. And we told you before, Professor Vereen Shepherd will be at the event today. She sent me a note. Prof, should I read it? She said, remember, I said to the representative from the Lloyd's Register that they cannot wiggle out of their complicity with the TTA because they declared fit slavers to go and capture people. Yes, you did, Vereen, and this is why one of the reasons why I've said to our listeners, go, because the interview is still up. Go and find the interview, Talking History, that Vereen did yesterday. She was very, very clear about where we all stand on this. She has always been very, very clear about that. iNation says, greetings, sister, team set, and we'll be there with books later. Give thanks once more. Okay, iNation team on their way to the Renova village. Thank you so much, my brother. And let me see. All right, Dawn Eaton. So Donnie says, Grand Rising beloved, Noel Phillips documentary and Hurricane Melissa months on, interesting. Okay, all right, I'll look out for that. Okay, thanks, Donnie. And do we have, we're waiting to get we're waiting to get Prime Eye online. This is interesting. All right, so let me do this. I'm going to send you. Should I send it? All right. Should I? Okay, I can do that while I'm talking. All right. So we're standing by for Prime Eye, who should be coming in shortly. Just having a wee bit of issue, but okay, we're gonna be linking him. I think it is just a matter of getting another number. So there you go. Sure. All right. Okay, so there is a statement from CARICOM, the CARICOM Council for Foreign and Community Relations, on the situation in Cuba. I don't know if you have seen that. The CARICOM Community Council for Foreign and Community Relations expresses its profound concern regarding the ongoing and intensifying economic, commercial and financial measures imposed upon the Republic of Cuba. The COFCOR reminds the mounting hardships facing the Cuban people also seriously impact CARICOM and CARICOM nationals studying and living in Cuba, whose well-being remains a priority for the community. The message says these measures compound the trade and economic embargo imposed on Cuba for over 6 decades, which has had a deleterious effect on the lives and livelihoods of the Cuban people. COFCOR unequivocally affirms Cuba's sovereign right to import and receive fuel and condemns the obstruction of energy supplies to Cuba, which has precipitated a grave humanitarian crisis. COFCOR reaffirms the need for the preservation of the Caribbean as a zone of peace. And this is a stupidness that I can't take from CARICOM, because they keep stressing that the Caribbean is a zone of peace. And I think it's about time that we take our heads out of, I was going to say out of the sand, right? Because the Caribbean has never been a zone of peace. The genocide of the Tainos, the Zong, the enslavement of Africans, the Caribbean waters is a sacred space where ancestral spirits are. And I'm not going to say what I was thinking. But the Caribbean has never been. When was the Caribbean a zone of peace? It is such a ridiculous statement. Which time? When? Between the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative and the coup in Grenada and ongoing sanctions and blockades against Cuba and war against Venezuela and everything else in recent times. But even historically, I don't know why they keep saying that. And it is because they keep saying that they lose people like me, because it tells me that this is just not a serious response. I'm not going to read any more of it, They are not serious about anything. I mean, we are to stop fooling ourselves talking about zones of peace. There is the biggest ship, one of the largest warships the U.S. has in the world, is heading to Jamaica. It's going to get here tomorrow. And it's been circling the Caribbean. And we see, the flexing of the muscles in the Caribbean waters. The flexing. Southcom has been very, very active. If you go now, let me just do this for fun, which is not really fun. But let me go to the Southcom X page, because I do follow them, right? And I'm sure they're following me too. All right, Southcom, which is the Southern Command, U.S. Southern Command. If you just go to their X page, let me see what their latest tweet is. Right, latest tweet. Let me just do all of it. U.S. Marines with Maritime Raid Force, Littoral Combat Force. It's the first time I'm reading this now, right? So I'm reading live. U.S. Marines with Maritime Raid Force, Littoral Combat Force 24, approach a UH-1Y Venom helicopter assigned to Marine Medium Trill Trotter Squadron VMM 365 reinforced during a maritime interdiction operation. Full mission profile, rehearsal aboard San Antonio class amphibious transport, and they have the picture there. It is all genuflecting, and they're showing this, and they're saying this is happening while underway in the Caribbean Sea. While underway in the Caribbean Sea. I wish I could bring that up to date for those who are watching online. While underway in the Caribbean Sea. Then right below that is another tweet where you just see something being blown up in the waters, and they're telling you that it was a kinetic strike, a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel operated by designated terrorist organizations. Intelligence confirmed the vessel was transiting along known narco-trafficking routes in the Eastern Pacific and was engaged in narco-trafficking operations. And them just blew it up, so it just blew up. Do we have? All right. So there is that. And right below that, I'm on their X page. Southcom, U.S. Southern Command, they operate in this region. Right below that, Commander General Francis L. Donovan personally inspected all aspects of the Naval Station Guantanamo Bay's security posture, leading a comprehensive perimeter security assessment and discussing force protection, operational readiness, and measures to ensure the safety and security of service members, their families, and the joint force stationed at the installation with the officials. And they're showing you the pictures. Right? They're all there on her social media pages. She has to leave her home because of direct energy weapons attack on her. Now, a lot of people have asked me, why did you drop the Epstein coverage? I dropped the Epstein coverage for a very similar thing, not direct energy weapons attack. I don't know if that was happening, but because of the backlash that I was getting. Have you considered that Epstein's very close friend was in Jamaica? Probably still is, I don't know. Have you considered that Epstein's very close friend, the scientist who was doing the research on Jamaica's children, hundreds, thousands of Jamaica's children, who was doing something looking like a gain of function, who was doing DNA and molecular and all kind of research on our athletes and on children? Have you considered that in the Epstein files, we have all the information, 90% of the information on Epstein's connection to Jamaica and the people that he was connected to in Jamaica? Have you considered that the Jamaican government has said nothing? Nobody in our government has said nothing. Nobody in sports has said nothing. Have you considered that? None of the athletes who mentioned, who I don't know if they knew that they were being experimented on, have said anything. Have you considered that Jamaica is pretending that Jamaica is not all over the Epstein files, and that Epstein's a scientist that was very close friend with Jeffrey Epstein, was writing to Jeffrey Epstein every single moment of the day to tell him what he was doing in Jamaica. Not only that Epstein was invited to Jamaica, that there's proof in the Epstein files that he came into Jamaica, that he probably met with athletes, that he probably met with sports operatives. Have you considered that there is silence, absolute silence in Jamaica about that? Have you considered that? And what that means? Have you considered that? And what that really means? That is the thing. So the sister who is a journalist, I'll tell you her name shortly. She literally run from her home now. She has to leave her home because of her research. And she also has written extensively about Epstein in Jamaica. She's written extensively about the Zora Ranch. She's written extensively. The last set of reports that she did directly connected to whether or not the Zora Ranch is connected to an intelligence agency. I'm going to leave it at that for a minute. To a very well-known intelligence. Just warships in the world is already in the Jamaican waters. You think they're just here to say hello? Okay, then we'll come back to that. I think my friend Prime Eye is Mutala Muntari is online.
Pointing out that.
Okay, no, he wouldn't be there. Let me see if he's here. Prime Eye, you there? All right, I'm not sure what's happening, so let me go here and see. All right, are you hearing me, Prime Eye? Mutala Muntari, my brother? Are you hearing me? All right, let me.
Not everyone will
That's
repent.
TV.
Not everyone
Not
responds.
everybody's going to repent. That's TV. All right, I'm not hearing him. I'm not hearing. Mutala, let's see if he's still there. Mutala Muntari is, as I said before, a Ghanaian media strategist, broadcaster, and Pan-African thought leader with over 2 decades of experience shaping public discourse across radio and television. Is a former general manager of Class Media Group, Class FM, Accra FM, CTV, and chief executive officer of Network Broadcasting Company Limited, Radio Gold, and Munti FM. He has played a pivotal role in strengthening independent media and amplifying African voices. His long-standing career with Radio Gold and TV3 saw him excel as a presenter, news editor, and programs manager, building platforms that informed, challenged, and empowered audiences. Mutala Muntari Prime Eye is also the convener of the Pan-African Forum, where he champions dialogue on African unity, governance, and development, connecting ideas and voices across the continent. So much about my brother Mutala Muntari. Beyond the newsroom, he's also contributed significantly to the cultural advocacy as a media relations manager for the Rita Marley Foundation in Ghana. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Public Administration, and he has a career rooted in media leadership and continental engagement. All right, let me see if we've got him now. All right, no? All right, Prime Eye, you there? All right, oh, but it's not plugged in, is it? Okay. Okay, let me try this. Prime Eye? No, all right. Is he hearing me, do you know? Yeah, so he's hearing me, but we're not hearing him. And I'm not doing anything out of the ordinary. This is my console, and we've got almost everything up. All right, let me go back here and see. All right, we're doing... he's on... No, he's in Ghana. So it's... Can we do Zoom? We should be able to hear him there, though. All right, I'm going to try this one time. We're doing this along the way. I've got Shanice has come out. Hey, Shanice. And when Shanice comes out, we should be able to get it. All right, so Prime Eye, you're hearing me. I'm not hearing you. And that is not funny. All right, I'm going to move things around a bit. Okay, if you keep talking, because we're used to this, Prime Eye. Last time you came on, same thing happened. All right, so we're getting a call that's coming in, but no Prime Eye, and still no Prime Eye. All right, at 20 minutes after 7 o'clock. Mutari, my brother. There's nothing else I can do. I've got it all up and locked and ready for him. I'm even changing things around and still not getting him. All right, what do we do? Okay, all right, that's Cashbot. Okay, I'm just pressing buttons here. But I know we've got all the buttons where they're supposed to be. So, try what? What I did just now? Okay, that's cue for me. So I won't be able to hear him. So that's cue for me. I'm not hearing him, not even on cue. So we're working this out while we're online, but this is how it happens. This is how it goes behind the scene. We could take a break and try and figure it out, but that's not necessarily going to help. Or we could play some music.
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Wow.
Loud and clear.
So we just did did another thing. We did
another magic, right?
We just did another thing. We use a computer to call you. So
wow.
Right. So there you are. So we're good. My brother, thank you for your patience. The same thing happened last time. I'm not quite sure why. We're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah. The last time it was good. I mean, it wasn't this difficult, but it's good to have you.
Thank you so much, my brother. All right. I'm going to start with what's happening with Ghana-Jamaica relations, because a massive thing. I'm considering it massive because Jamaica, our foreign affairs minister, Kamina Johnson-Smith, and an entire delegation. I think the Minister of Health was also there in Ghana recently. So there was a big rolling out of Ghana and Jamaica just doing what Ghana and Jamaica does, which we already have a really, really close relation. So what is different this time? What are you noticing?
Well, the historical ties have always been there between Ghana and Jamaica, and recently we sent some of our military, our armed forces, experts from our armed forces to help with the recent disaster in Jamaica, and the connection has been there, and Ghanaians have also been very receptive to that, very, very happy about it. I think after Palestine, Jamaica this year has been the second country that Ghana has put forward our military expertise and our military specialists to help. Yes. with the disaster in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. So yes, the connection is always there. Jamaica is virtually like Ghana, and Ghana is like Jamaica, in terms of our cultural ties, in terms of our historic ties. So it's just a continuing relationship.
Right, and I think there was some discussion of medical personnel coming into Jamaica also. A lot seem to have been signed there in Ghana.
Yeah, still in the works. Yeah, still in the works. And I think there will be more to come. I mean, this government, since it's assumed power in 2024, was sworn in 2025 in January, has sort of, changed the foreign policy as compared to what pertained 8 years ago with the previous administration, the previous New Patriotic Party administration, which was more reactionary. But this administration is very Pan-African in its approach to affairs, not just outside the continent, but also within the continent. So there's more to come.
Yeah,
yes.
so and I'm not sure. Well, I see that the coverage in Ghana is similar to the coverage here in terms of the big announcement that Jamaica and because I'm looking at Africa TV, Pan-Africa TV, but I'm also looking at reports coming out of Ghana newspaper where the headlines are Ghana, Jamaica agree to deepen bilateral ties after 21-year hiatus. I don't know why. Well, they say hiatus. We've been going, the people of Jamaica and the people of Ghana, primary. I mean, we've been doing our thing, but obviously they say 21-year hiatus. We don't even know what that means. We weren't even aware that there was a hiatus. Yeah.
There has been no hiatus, my friend.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, well, government to government, this is how they're saying it, but it's a very interesting thing because, for those who are watching online, you're seeing Kamina Johnson-Smith there with her counterpart meeting in Ghana.
In Ghana.
So they made a big deal of it, and it for some of us, we were a little bit confused because we already, I think, well, anyway, congratulations, Jamaica. I don't know. But so let's see what these are. I know that there's what's probably a little bit new is that nurses from Ghana are coming into Jamaica, but it's still not so new. I think what they're saying is that they will be replacing the Cuban medical personnel, and it's a pity that this is the way it is going. That, we're using Ghanaians to replace Cubans. We're using ourselves to replace, ourselves. Something wrong?
Yes, absolutely. It's family. I mean, as I said, the engineers regiment of the Ghana Armed Forces was deployed, to assist with the reconstruction efforts after the devastation of the hurricane, Melissa, I think it is.
Right.
And now we're having health personnel coming over as well. As I said, there will be more because of the Pan-African stance of this current John Dramani Mahama government.
Yes.
And it's fearless in terms of its position on even Palestine, without fear of consequences from all these big Western powers in quote. Quite recently, we had Ghanaians mistreated in Israel, and the Ghana government also sent some of the Israeli citizens back to Israel as a response to that. So I mean, the government has been quite fearless on its stance, on its position on the Pan-African front.
Yes, we see that the Ghanaian government is walking a tightrope. Hang on there for me, please. Behind time because we joined Prime Eye so late. So I'm asking our dearest brother, Professor Isaac Saney, just to stand by. We're going to be talking about Cuba, and also to us, dear sister, Sister Sahini Das, who is from Carliota's Warriors for Cuba Club. Just to stand by for us while we talk to Prime Eye. Please stand by. Our apologies that we're running a bit late. Now, Prime Eye, There's so much happening on the continent of Africa. I know that you've been covering a whole lot. You're following what's happening in the Sahel. You're following what's happening in Senegal. Ethiopia goes to the elections tomorrow. And obviously there's a situation in South Africa, Ghanaians, a massive misunderstanding, obviously being stoked by others. It's interesting, Prime Eye, and I've been having a conversation about this, that xenophobia is so-called fear of foreigners, right? But when xenophobia rears its ugly head, and has been doing for quite a while, especially under the Trump regime in the United States, it's not called xenophobia, it's called immigration. When xenophobia rears its ugly head in England, in the UK, with Tommy Robinson and them, with millions of them marching in London against so-called foreigners, others. It's not called xenophobia. It's called immigration. But when you have a situation in South Africa where there's a plan to hijack South Africa and to put the apartheid regime not just behind the scene back in place, but up and front through the DA in place, then all of a sudden we all learn this word, xenophobia. Your thinking on this?
Well, the word in Ghana now is Afrophobia. There has been, since the main target of the wrath of our South African brothers and sisters, has been those of us from West Africa, mostly Ghanaians, Nigerians, possibly Beninois. And also their counterparts in Zimbabwe. So the target hasn't been I mean, it is not xenophobic. It's just fear of Africans and not wanting to have Africans.
And I think, Prima, shouldn't we look at this again? Because we remember this is not the first time that we see this thing come up, and every time it comes up, it usually is connected directly back to white influence, and our brothers and sisters continue to be stalked and influenced by the colonizers, and I suppose it's about time we begin to call it what it is, really, to say that there is a bigger plan. Because while that is happening, we have Donald Trump from the White House saying that they are about to take another tranche of white Afrikaners from South Africa because their lives are in danger. And then we have Elon Musk saying at the same time that South Africa is a racist country because South Africa will not allow him to put his Starlink all over South Africa unless he employs black people. So there is a plan to capture fully again through apartheid means South Africa, and all of this is connected, including
absolutely
the stalking and the paying of Africans to provoke other continental Africans.
Absolutely. I mean, South Africa hasn't been in a good position. I mean, the entire economy, the South African economy, is an apartheid economy. I mean, nothing really changed since the political takeover of black majority. I mean, the white minority is pretty much in charge of the economic pillars of the country. Even here in Ghana, there's a mine, a goldfields mine in Takwa, which belongs to the South Africans. Mm-hmm. But guess what? It doesn't belong to the blacks. It doesn't belong to a black South African. It belongs to a white South African company. Well, so of course they stoked the fires in Africa. Black against black. South Africans do not want to see Ghanaians in South Africa. They think that and then Nigerians and other black Africans, because they think that we've taken their jobs and we are the reason they are in a difficult situation in terms of their economy.
And this is the point I'm raising, Prima, to say this is the very same conversation that is happening in the United Kingdom, that is happening in Canada, that is happening in the United States more than all. This is the exact same conversation. But you do not hear whether it is Afrophobia, xenophobia, or any kind of phobia coming out of those spaces until it is Africa. But it is the very same right wing, and I don't like to say right wing, but I'm going to use it this morning, It's the very same right wing politics that is all connected back to the tech bros, who are also very involved in what's happening in South Africa and connected. And notice the relationship between the tech bros, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and all of them. Peter Thiel is on his way to live in Argentina, another right-wing country, and Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage. Notice the connection there, and notice their connection also to Argentina. It's interesting that we are not making this connection as African people. That we even as journalists, we have to be very careful how we report on this, because South Africa cannot be viewed as an African country right now. South Africa has to be viewed through the eyes of Nigel Farage, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, to the extent that they want to capture the entire country as part of...
Absolutely, and they're very close to doing that.
That's right.
They are very close to doing that. I mean, look at their parliament. I mean, the White Party is the second strongest party in South Africa now. The DA party, the party. I mean, they're basically white supremacists.
Yes,
that's they call it Democratic Alliance. But I mean, after Cyril Ramaphosa, it's clear that the DA party stands a very strong chance of taking over the country.
And that is the sadness of it.
So what I've predicted is that, most likely we're going to have a white South African, the first white South African president since the country moved away from apartheid. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
And he's going to be from which party?
The DA party. Yes.
Isn't that apartheid? Isn't that the apartheid party? Isn't that apartheid?
Yes, you can call it that. I mean, what's the difference, really? But what amazes me is how Black South Africans support this party. My goodness. Well, it's just amazing.
Well, we saw what they did during the elections, and this is what is happening across the world, is that they make it so that the bread and butter issues are so critical that people are taking monies from they're giving their votes away, and they've made it so that their values again are superior, and they've made it so that apartheid is not being taught in schools in South Africa. They've made it so that Nelson Mandela, Winnie Mandela, and the struggle for liberation is not being taught in school in South Africa. So if you forget your history, you are bound to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Absolutely.
And this is what is
so that's the fear. That's the fear across the continent, and I mean, so long as they remain the second. I mean, they actually have ministers from the DA party within Cyril Ramaphosa's government currently, and I think the finance minister is from the party. I mean, so it's clear that the ANC is sort of losing steam. And because of unemployment and lack of economic opportunities for the South African blacks, and of course that's why they're pushing their anger and their frustration on fellow Black Africans. Because of the frustration in the economy, it looks very likely that the DA party is going to take over after the ANC.
It's very likely.
After ANC. And so we're going to have white minority rule in South Africa once again.
Yes.
Barely 30 years after.
I don't know if you remember that we were asking that question in the 90s, right? We were asking that question in this space in the 90s. Will South Africa see a white president? And we literally put some time on it, that maybe not now, but probably in the next 15 to 20 years. This is a conversation we're having. And in the last few years, we've been having this with South Africans. Will South Africa see a white government back in place, apartheid era government? And the answer came back a resounding yes, and it is closer than we thought. And when we saw the last election and the coalition that was formed, that Zuma was out and Malema was out. Malema has been thrown into prison. Zuma was out. That Ramaphosa, who has so much to hide, joined with Didier, and then they're telling us that he couldn't do better. He couldn't do anything differently. Well, you can always do the Sahel. You can always be Ibrahim Traore. And you've been looking at the Sahel, my brother. What's the latest coming out of the Sahel, where we have just a few minutes left?
Recently a radical Muslim cleric was arrested in Burkina Faso for inciting the citizenry against the Ibrahim Traore government, and rightly so, especially when they're busy fighting terrorism and fighting all these radical Islamic concepts. And I mean, it's just amazing. In Ibrahim Traore's Burkina Faso, you have the guts to hold up, to stand on the pulpit with a microphone and incite the people against it. The information is that there was even citizens' arrest before the military could even get to him. Wow. People had already chased him out of the mosque and wanted him. I mean, because the people of Burkina Faso know the good works of Ibrahim Traore, and anything that crosses that will be dealt with, and he's in prison as I speak.
Well, at least we know the system is working. And also, quickly, just 30 seconds. Obviously, we're looking at Senegal. What an interesting. They're playing checkers. They're playing checkers in Senegal, while our brother Sonko is playing chess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Playing big time chess, and it looks like we already have a next president of Senegal in Ousmane Sonko, because Bassirou Faye, who is currently the president, has made a terrible move.
Yes.
And it's clear that he's not going to get the support of the youth. There's massive support for Sonko. And Sonko is not just a Pan-Africanist. Sonko is a hardliner in terms of his Pan-Africanism. He's way higher than Ibrahim Traore. I mean, he's just another level of Ibrahim Traore, just in suit. Mm-hmm. And now he's in charge of parliament. He's the president of the Senegalese parliament. His party, PASTEF, has 130 members out of the 165. So he has majority in parliament.
So that's, sorry, for those who are watching online, that's Faye we're looking at on the screen, not Sonko. But I do think you have Sonko there, Peter. Yes, so because he appointed a new prime minister, Faye himself, to replace Sonko. But Sonko really is now, as you said, the speaker.
Yes, of the Senegalese parliament. Yes. And now that he's looking to, President Faye is looking to push through his IMF policies, in the Senegalese parliament. It's going to be interesting to see how that turns out, because everything's going to get back on Sonko's desk.
I think here we have Sonko
his majority.
now.
With his majority in parliament, that would be interesting. And I'm not sure he'll be able to push through his IMF austere policies, which Sonko absolutely disagrees with.
But his prime minister is fully. Hold on, don't move.
Of the West African Central Bank at some point. But he agrees with Bassirou Faye, President Faye. He agrees with the IMF policies. He's a French-leaning person. France want to have it their way in Senegal, but it won't be for long, because as a matter of fact, it was on the wings of Sonko that Faye came to power.
That's right.
I mean, without Sonko, Faye would never have been elected. Right. I mean, it was Sonko that said, okay, everybody vote for, I can't stand because of the legal issues, but vote for Faye. If you vote for Faye, is a vote for me, Sonko. So vote, so that's how come Faye came to power. Right. And the idea was a Pan-African movement. And then Faye, now for months there's been disagreement between Sonko and Faye, and it's good that Prime Minister Sonko now is no longer close to Faye, and now in charge of parliament. Now he's his own man. And it's just a matter of time before he becomes the next president.
Yeah, we just stand, and we're waiting for that. I'm voting here in Jamaica for Sonko. Whether the vote counts, yes or no, we're voting for Sonko. We see where Faye is now in Gambia, isn't he? It's interesting he's gone to the Gambia, of all places, because we remember Barrow is an interesting personality himself. We have to talk about that the next time.
Well.
He's probably going to learn how to remain in power. Because this one, listen, let's leave it there. But thank you so much, my brother. We call him, we know him long time. Mutala Muntari, Ghanaian media strategist, broadcaster, and Pan-African thought leader with over 2 decades of experience shaping public discourse across radio and television in Ghana. Thank you so much, my brother. Looking forward to talking to you soon.
Sure, welcome.
All right. It's exciting times on the continent of Africa. The changes are beginning to make sense, but we're just watching to see how they all play out. 7:49, and can we go to my brother Isaac Saini? I'm not quite sure if he's online. It's interesting because Professor Isaac Saini, is actually on the island. He's here in Jamaica. I got such an interesting call yesterday because we're coming from the Rio Nueva village, right? Just checking out the venue and so on, ensuring that things are okay for today. And we're driving back. Just as we're driving out of the Rio Nueva village, the phone rang. And I saw Professor Isaac Saini, and it is his overseas number. But then he says, my sister, I am here in Jamaica. I'm at the airport, and guess who just picked me up? And it was our brother, Trevor Brown, talking about the Cuba link-up. Good morning, Trevor Brown. Cuba-Jamaica relations. It means that we've got things locked. I mean, he's coming for a conference, Professor Isaac Saini, and we're hoping to join him online. Do we have him? He's there? All right, okay. So I think he is on. Oh, there you are. There you are. Professor Isaac Saini, thank you for coming in. I'm not hearing you. I think you're muted. Okay, I'm still not hearing Prof. Oh, there you are. There you are.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Okay, Irene.
Yes. Well, you've learned that already, and you just got in yesterday.
Well, I grew up in Trinidad, right? So, and I hang around with a lot of in the Caribbean community in Canada as well, right? So, yeah.
My brother, we're smiling because we're happy to see you and know that you're on the island of Jamaica. But obviously, there is one. Welcome to Jamaica. Thank you for your patience, so that we could finish our conversation with our brother from Ghana. But so the interesting situation. I'm going to start where what's happening now is unfolding, because as you were coming into Jamaica yesterday, one of the biggest warships in the world was also coming into Jamaica. You came in together. You realize that?
It's not distinctly, in my opinion, it's not an honor.
No,
but
it's not.
It's frightening.
Yes.
There's all this money invested in billions of dollars in a killing machine, and you could solve so many. People know this already. You could solve so many problems in the world, right?
Yeah.
Various diseases and so forth, if you invested that money in human beings as opposed to in killing.
And there's a conversation in Jamaica, on the social media, in the nook and crannies of Jamaica, wherever you go, Jamaican people are talking about this, and they're saying this is a threat to Cuba. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, we're all watching with bated breath and deep, deep concern and fear as the Trump administration has escalated its rhetoric against Cuba, calling Cuba a military threat. Nobody in their right mind thinks Cuba is a threat to the United States. And so, in fact, it's been the U.S., that's not only sponsored an invasion of Cuba, not only attempted to economically strangulate Cuba to economic warfare, but, you have all sorts of terrorist acts that have been launched from U.S. territory, with U.S. knowledge and complicity, that's killed hundreds of Cubans and maimed hundreds more. So Cuba is not a threat. But, Trump, with his setbacks in the Persian Gulf with Iran, also with this idea of complete domination of the Americas, sees Cuba's independence, right? Its resilience, its defiance as something that must, after over nearly 70 years, because the revolution's been with Trump to 1959, but after more than 65 years, this has to be crushed. And I think, as I always like to make this reference, when we think of Cuba in this day and age and the U.S. threats, the buildup of the military, the USS Nimitz coming in, we hear about buildup of troops in Puerto Rico. We hear that Pentagon is making these plans. We have the threats from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, his constant attacks on Cuba. We're very concerned that the U.S. is planning some sort of military aggression against Cuba. But as I was saying, as I preface his comments, I think it's also important, and the Cubans often make this point, to also look what happened to Haiti and the Haitian Revolution, right? Okay. The multiple interventions, by the Spanish, the English, and the French again, and then the sort of say isolation of Haiti to destroy that example. We see this time and time again, where these emancipatory projects always are born under siege and always face imperial aggression. So many of us are deeply concerned. And what's interesting, though, is as the U.S. has stepped up its economic warfare against Cuba, the preparation for military aggression and so forth, and the heat of its rhetoric, we see on an international scale, at least on the question of civil society, people basically standing up for Cuba, saying no to war in Cuba, end the blockade of Cuba, send oil and fuel to Cuba. All the polls indicate this, and this has led to desperation in the United States, where they've begun investigations and harassment and intimidation of Cuba solidarity organizations. So this is a very dangerous time for Cuba. It's a very dangerous time for the Caribbean. And what does Caribbean independence mean, right? What does it mean for us in the 21st century? What does it mean for us in an emerging multipolar world? What does it mean for our human dignity?
And those are great questions. One of the questions dogging a lot of us here is also, if it is that this almost the biggest warship in the world has come into Jamaican waters, and if this is connected to Cuba, which many think that it is, and which you have also just said, then it means that Jamaica is signing on and has signed on to something that is frightening. How do we use Jamaican waters as not just an attack, but a threat, or even a perceived threat against Cuba?
Yeah, I know this is the question. I know nations of the Caribbean, compared to the imperial power, and we're economically vulnerable, obviously militarily vulnerable. We're small powers. We're, in the eyes of these people, useless specks, right, that sit there and who only exist for the fun, right, and recreation of those coming from the north, particularly from the United States. So this is a very deep question. And I know that many of my colleagues in Jamaica, many of my colleagues outside, the part of the Jamaican diaspora outside, have written letters, right, have said, listen, this is a time to take a stand, right? And in fact, it's time to put ourselves on the right side of history. And if we want to be pragmatic about it, we know that the U.S. empire is declining and a multipolar world is emerging, right? Where does the Caribbean want to be placed in that? I think, when we look at what the U.S. is doing, one of the things that has disappeared from any discussion is the ecological catastrophe that hangs over us. Climate change is something Trump doesn't believe exists, right? And in fact, it's something they want to accelerate because these guys have an end of time, horrific fantasy of how the world will unfold. And so what does that mean for the Caribbean dealing with these long-term consequences? From everything from climate change, in which we, the most thoroughly colonized space in the world, the most vulnerable to climate change, what happens to us, right? If the world powers, if the economic system, the international system doesn't address these issues, what happens in the sense of of dealing with inequality, right? What happens, as I said, with placing ourselves, dealing with AI, which is completely disrupting economies and disrupting people's lives. So these are all existential questions, right? A crisis, right, that faces the Caribbean. And people may say, well, it's very difficult for Caribbean nations to stand up. But I think it's possible to do that. And I think of small Grenada during the Grenadian Revolution, right? And people may have their different views on the Grenadian Revolution. But that small island stood up to the empire and became a symbol of dignity and was able, according even to the IMF and World Bank, no friends of revolution, no friends of socialism, that the Grenadian economy was growing during the time of the revolutionary government that was in place there. So I think there are examples of people standing up, and we have to think of the future generations, right? We're older. What happens to the young generations? And I happen at my age, quite happily, I have a 7-year-old late in life, and I think of what am I going to leave to her, right? What world is she going to inherit? What example am I going to lead to her in terms of fighting for a better world and so forth? And so I think the CARICOM statements that have come out, which have been sort of tepid, right? The fact that Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago have had their caveats. This is a crisis for CARICOM. But I think just because we're small nations, relatively speaking, we can have a large unified voice. And I think this is important at this critical moment.
Let me take a quick break and come back to you, Prof, because I want to talk about that voice that seems it's muted. At the least. Let me take a and coordinator of the Black and African Diaspora Studies program. He holds a PhD in history from the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. His research interests are Cuba, international political economy, race and racism, and Black Nova Scotian history, areas on which he regularly lectures and publishes, and he joins us here many times. His teaching and lecturing have encompassed courses on Cuba, Caribbean political economy, law, human rights, and African Canadian history. He has published articles in several journals and magazines on these themes. Totally. We keep getting an interruption. Can we fix that? He is the author of the highly acclaimed book, Cuba, A Revolution in Motion, which is being used in many university courses, and very, very well qualified to speak on the issues that we're talking about this morning. CARICOM, Professor Saini, is in shambles over not just Cuba, but specifically in this regard. Isn't CARICOM showing that, similar to the United Nations, it's on the brink of collapse?
Well, that's a possibility. People answer these questions. In December, I published a piece on CARICOM in the Trinidad Express in Trinidad and Tobago, a sort of an opinion piece, where I think what CARICOM needs is a rejuvenation, right? It tends to be state-centric. I think the real creativity and resilience comes from the masses and from the people, right? Okay, that kind of participatory democratic participation in setting the agenda. But I think a lot of these regional bodies and these supranational bodies are in crisis because the world world is in flux. The United Nations is obviously an organization critically in crisis, right? It's not democratic because of the veto at the UN Security Council. And so if the United Nations is in crisis, given the kind of changes were taking place, much less for CARICOM, right? So I think it's a time for us to sit back and re-envision, right? One is the Pan-Caribbean dream of Caribbean Unity, Caribbean Cooperation. Is that dead? Are we going to fall into our isolated silos, right? And what does that mean? Or can we reinvigorate this dream, right? In such a way that the Caribbean not only has a role to play in this new emerging global terrain, but has something very powerful and to teach and to offer, right? In this sense, right? So I'm a big believer in Caribbean unity, and some of you remember the late great Norman Govan, who became a very close friend and mentor of mine, right? He visited Halifax
and a
quite
mentor
often.
of this program, a mentor of the Africa Forum, Norman Govan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, I mean, Norman, I don't want to go over, but Norman was a tremendous individual, right?
Yes.
And, he used to come to my city, Halifax, quite for over 10, 12 years. We became very close friends. He was a mentor, colleague, and he had a tremendous sense of humor, right? And of course, both he and I, lamented the demise and the collapse of Caribbean cricket, right? And so what? But he and I often spoke about Caribbean unity, and he was one of the most eloquent voices for the Caribbean unity, right? But he was also one of the most eloquent voices that for the CARICOM or any kind of Caribbean institution, Pan-Caribbean, to survive, right, or to be meaningful, it has to be rooted in the people, okay? And that it has to, yes, we operate in a world, the states are important, but the states have to have significant participatory mechanisms for the people. And I think that's where the creativity comes from, right? And of course, it's always difficult. There's a lot of stuff written about the collapse of the U.S. empire. A new world order is emerging and so forth. And it's always difficult when you're the generation or that section of humanity that's living through that transition and that flux, because everything seems so uncertain, right? And everything seems so completely frightening, right? But I think this is a moment for the Caribbean, who has taught so, because there's a whole history, like Pan-Africanism, the greatest Pan-African thinkers emerged from the Caribbean, right? We have a whole slew of thinkers, right? And I think this is a moment for the Caribbean to seize this opportunity and make its contribution. We have the Caribbean Studies Association conference taking place here in Kingston next week. And it's a 50th anniversary, right? And one of the things is that the Caribbean radical tradition, the Caribbean intellectual tradition has been so rich and fecund, right? That we have an opportunity to speak to this moment, okay? And I think this is the opportunity. And we can speak both as intellectuals, we can speak both as civil society, but I think it's an opportunity also for the leaders of these states, of these governments, to speak with a unified voice, right? Especially as humanity faces these existential challenges.
I must apologize. I'm not sure if you're hearing the interruption. We do not know where it's coming from, right? So there's an interruption, but we do not know. It's definitely not on my board. It's not on Peter's console, but it's coming in.
The vagaries of technology in the 21st century.
Yeah, we take it more than technology. We're talking about Cuba, and we're very serious about Cuba this morning. So we're going to have this conversation. I want to go back to Jamaica for a minute, and then also I want to ask you about the conference you're in for. Yeah. But does Jamaica this morning have a special responsibility, considering the angst amongst Jamaicans this morning regarding the largest ship that has come in, the Warship that has come in? Does Jamaica have a special responsibility to say something, whether it's to the Prime Minister's office or somebody else's office, to say something about what we're seeing unfolding? And do the people of Jamaica have a special responsibility this morning to demand answers from the government of Jamaica about where Jamaica stands at the minute regarding the what seems to be shaping up to America's planned military attack on Cuba?
Yeah. Well, first I'd say I think all the peoples of the region and the Americas have that responsibility, right? An attack against Cuba is a violation of the fundamental principles of international law and will create tremendous instability and will put in train a series of events that will have a significant impact on Caribbean independence and so on. And I know many of my Jamaican colleagues, mentors and friends and comrades, right, are very concerned about this and articulating the same concerns you have. And I operate within Canada, and we have the same concerns in Canada as well, right? Because, Canada, which has the largest foreign investment in Cuba, was once this largest source of tourists and has, there's all these family connections, has really been mute about what the government has been really been mute about this. So we have raised the same issues, and we have said not in our name in Canada, and that this an attack on Cuba represents an attack not just on Cuba, but an attack on Canada and an attack on the entire Americas, right? And that if we want to create a world of peace, okay, of equality and of human dignity, we can't have the rule that might makes right. Okay, that imperial powers can do whatever they want at their whim. This is what Trump is doing. I mean, what sets Trump aside from other U.S. administrations, they don't have any euphemisms. There's no hiding this up, right? They make it very clear this is about U.S. power. This is about U.S. domination. It was clearly articulated in their 2025 National Security Strategy document, which I encourage people to read. It's probably the most perused and analyzed security document that U.S. ever produced. And it's very clear. It's about U.S. domination. Right? What does that mean for us, right? And also, more important than this, it's also, I have to say, a white supremacist project. We have to be very clear about this, right?
We have the document. Okay. We're going to be talking about it later. We've been raising it into space over the last few weeks, and I think it's correct that we should all read it. We're going to be just going through it for a little, for a few minutes later on at around 8:35 or thereabouts. But all right, let me bring in our sister Sahini Das has joined us, but I want to bring her in, but I also want to wrap with you because we have only 10 minutes or so left before we go to. So I want to ask you quickly about the conference that you're in for and whether or not we can participate.
Yeah, no, I think people can come to the conference. This is the first Caribbean Studies Association conference I'm attending. I'm actually attending it because my colleague Chevy Eugene, who's a colleague of Dalhousie, who's a major scholar in reparations, said, Isaac, you must come to this, right? And my colleague Sakaya Thomas, who is on the global, said, come to Jamaica, we'll do some stuff. And I'm actually, before I get to talk about the conference, after this interview, I'm actually going to be going to an event here on Cuba. That's taking place, right? So the whole point is the conference is bringing together Caribbean intellectuals, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's always a time where you meet, and you find out, and you really see how rich the Caribbean intellectual traditions are, right? And it's taking place at the Pegasus Hotel from June 1st to June 5th. I'm speaking on a panel with some other people about galvanizing the Black radical, the Caribbean radical tradition, right? Okay, and so forth. And what this means in the 21st century, and of course what it means in terms of the context that we're talking about. So it's the 50th anniversary of the Caribbean Studies Association conference. It's going to be exciting. I know people are going to be presenting a new book of poetry and so forth. Yes. The poetry. So it's going to be both a literary event and an intellectual event, and an intellectual festival, so to speak, that acquires significant importance because of what's actually happening in Cuba and what it means for the rest of the Caribbean and so forth.
Brilliant. We every time really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Professor Isaac Saini, as usual.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate the radio program, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. No question what's happening around us now, but we keep having these interruptions. But we're joined now by Sister Sahini Das. My sister, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us. She is, let me tell you a little bit about her before we go on, representing in her own right herself, but also our sister Rosemary Mealy, who couldn't make it this morning. So Sahini, very good to see you. She is the social media project Carlotta's Warriors for Cuba. Have you been on before? Were you on the phone?
I was on before.
There you go. It's you.
Yes, last year, yes.
Now we're seeing you, so thank you so much. How is this social media Warriors for Cuba? How is that project going?
Yes. We are the Carlotta's Warriors for Cuba on social media. We're a social media collective creating media against the disinformation war on Cuba, particularly as people within the United States, within the U.S. empire, creating media to counter a lot of the disinformation that comes out, particularly from the U.S. government, the U.S. media about Cuba, about the Cuban people, about the Cuban government. And it is our duty as young people here in the United States to be able to counter this disinformation war on Cuba. So our particular focus right now is on the escalating pretext for the war on Cuba. So.
And this is the thing, because, when I wrote to Prof. Mealy, Rosemary, our sister, one of the things I said to her, and this is what we've been talking about in the space, is how do we counter the disinformation? Because there's just so much out there. What is true? What isn't? Where's the propaganda? And how do we begin to counter that? So congratulations on the work that you continue to do. And we are tapped into exactly what you're doing. What is the latest on Cuba within that regard? Because we're hearing so much. What can you tell us?
Yes. So as of 3 months now, Cuba has not received any new shipment of fuel. Fuel crisis is escalating in Cuba, particularly with the January 29th executive order of the United States that stopped any shipment of oil to Cuba, even potentially applying sanctions to country who tried to provide oil to Cuba. This has completely shut down any fuel entering the country. Then following that, in May 1st, another executive order came out, which now stopped and restricted any sort of financial contributions from foreign banks to Cuba. And any country that provides this financial support will also be potentially sanctioned, receives threats of potential sanctions in the United States. So right now we see this effort of isolating Cuba on behalf of the United States, isolating Cuba, setting up a pretext for a potential military invasion of Cuba. Recently, we also saw in the United States an indictment of former Cuban revolutionary leader Raul Castro, who was indicted on a false claim that Cuba is involved in a shooting down of a plane in 1996, which has been falsely claimed to as a pretext to set up a military invasion, but not something that has been proven. In fact, there has been a lot of scholars, academics, organizers who have called out how Cuba in 1996 acted in complete sovereign right to defend its land, to defend its people, after repeated violations from this particular group that has violated Cuban sovereignty prior to 1996. So we see that there's lies that are being fabricated, events that have been fabricated by the United States and the United States media, particularly to set the pretext for a potential military invasion. So right now in Cuba, we see the Cuban people are still ready to defend their land. The Cuban Revolution is still strong. The Cuban people are still strong. They're creative. There's so much creative resistance. People are, installing solar panels in their homes. People are using creative ways to light their homes, even within blackouts in some places, over 20 hours of blackouts, still finding ways to cook, still finding ways to light their homes, to enjoy life, but also to be prepared in this potential military invasion.
And I'm not sure, because here we're talking about disinformation again, but I saw some images coming out of Cuba where it seemed as if Cuban people were marching in solidarity. Okay, so that's true. So tell us about that.
Yes. So on May 1st, there was a huge, over 100,000 people on the streets of Havana along the ocean, Malecon, were marching against the U.S. blockade on Cuba, particularly calling for the right to defend their sovereign land, their right to defend even Raul Castro and the potential, kidnapping. We saw even recently, the kidnapping of another democratically elected leader, Nicolas Maduro, in Venezuela. So the Cubans are very aware of what could potentially happen, but also very prepared to defend their people, defend their revolutionary heroes like Raul Castro.
And for those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook, we have a scenes of the thousands of the 100,000 people who turned out and marched in Cuba, and it's interesting for us to understand this. How important is it for us to understand the strength that's coming out of Cuba, but at the same time to know that we have a responsibility, whether it's through our voices or through our action, to make this known, what's happening in Cuba, but also to assist?
Yes, one thing is, first thing that's very important is for us to understand that the Cuban people continue the Cuban Revolution and unwaveringly still will defend their revolution. So there's a lot of media out there right now, particularly created and fabricated by the U.S. media and U.S. government, to try to create an image that Cuba is failing, that Cuban people are not prepared, that Cuban people are completely prepared for a potential regime change, and this is a lie. We see this in evidence of the march on May Day, but also of the continued unwavering resistance of the Cuban people. So that is one piece of lie that media continues to put out, particularly from the United States, to try to justify this potential military invasion. The Cuban people have repeatedly, over 6 million signatures were signed, part of a campaign, La Firma por la Patria, that showed that over 6 million Cubans do not want change in their Cuban government. They do stand unwaveringly in support of the Cuban Revolution. And so we, as people outside of Cuba, have to continue to spread.
On our program, we do not know what it is. We're still trying to figure that out. But my very special guest is online, our sister Sahina Das, and we're talking now about just countering disinformation regarding Cuba. And as you have said, Sahini, one of the things that's coming out of Cuba is that, well, that's coming out of the United States and especially the legacy media, is that Cuban people want to see a change of government in Cuba. And you're saying this is just a blatant lie. Cuban people are rallying not just in support of the revolution, but in support of the leaders of Cuba right now, and especially against the plan and the plot by the United States to deport or to come in and take one of the Castros.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. There has been a campaign called Por la Patria, Firma por la Patria, over 6 million signatures of Cuban people against the Cuban blockade by the United States and against any potential military invasion of Cuba, any potential regime change. The Cuban people have very clearly shown through their action, through these signatures, through their resistance, that they are unwaveringly committed to the Cuban Revolution, to their government, to their socialism, despite the lies that the United States media and government tries to tell.
As far as what's happening on the ground regarding, because you mentioned that fuel hasn't come in for 3 months, how are people managing? How are people surviving?
Yes, in this moment, we see that the government has prioritized particularly vulnerable areas like hospitals, like rural areas, like schools, for electricity, for any type of remaining fuel. Even the implementation of solar panels has begun drastically. We see within the last 4 or 5 months that solar panels have been implemented over 600 homes, 600 places are having new ways of renewable energy being implemented into practice. Although we see that the crisis is still ongoing, many people are awaiting surgeries, many people are awaiting medical services. Hospitals are running with very limited fuel supply, and you can imagine what that means. This is creating a situation, particularly this fuel blockade is creating a situation where the Cuban people are dying, right, are being killed by this escalation of the blockade. And so Cuban people continue to prioritize, right, the most vulnerable populations. We see maternal mortality has grown as well in this moment, but still in this moment they're conducting surgeries. We heard a story recently of a doctor's performing surgeries using the light of a cell phone in order to complete surgery. So even in this moment, right, still people are going to school, still hospitals are open, but it is a very hard situation in which the fuel is ending and the blockade is escalating.
Do you know how supplies are getting in, and if supplies are getting in, and how can we help?
Yes. So right now in this moment, recently we did see this shipment of China sending tons of rice, breaking this blockade in order to provide this life-saving food, which is also being restricted from being imported to Cuba. So we see that country like China is sending, material aid. And in the United States, there are many caravans that recently, with the Mayday Brigade, a caravan of material aid that was being sent from the entire northeast region of the United States with materials to support Cuba, including food, including medical supplies, including sanitary napkins, hygiene products. This is a moment that our solidarity needs to be material. People can still travel to Cuba. People are still able to go to Cuba. We'll be traveling to Cuba. I will be traveling myself to Cuba in July, and we are still collecting material aid. We invite people across the Caribbean, across the world to visit in this moment, to go to Cuba, to bring material aid in all forms, whether it be medical supplies, whether it be hygiene products, food. This is a moment that we can show our solidarity in those material ways.
And here in Jamaica, we're still able to go to Cuba. So that's something that we should bear in mind, that we can, I think, even easier than you are in the United States, the Jamaicans can get to Cuba. So how do we reach you? Or how do we, because obviously this is where disinformation comes to die in the sphere in which you're operating. So for persons who want to know what's really going on in Cuba, we need to lock into the work that you and your team, along with Dr. Rosemary Mealy, is doing. So how can we get to you? How do we find the information?
You can find us on Instagram at Carlotas Warriors for Cuba, Carlotas Warriors #4 Cuba. Right, and we will be posting updates and sharing more news as it comes out.
Thank you so much, my sister. Thank you for the work you're doing. Please say thanks to Dr. Rosemary. We really appreciate all the work that you all are doing. Really, really. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, young people for Cuba, this is serious. It's a young warriors for Cuba. We are not going to sleep. We do not intend to sleep. We defend Cuba with our very last breath. This is about a very serious issue. We have to ask questions of the Prime Minister. It might be difficult because we find it very difficult now as journalists, serious journalists, and even as some parliamentarians, to ask questions of the governing party. It's a sad situation that we find ourselves in, that we have a blockade on Cuba, and this blockade has been going on for a while. And now we have one of the biggest warships. Do you have a ship? Do you have that warship, Peter? We have one of the biggest warships docked in Jamaica. Jamaican people are right to raise the question about why now and in Jamaica's waters. We know that Trinidad and Guyana have already signed on to America's war on Cuba. We know that. We know that Jamaica feels that it has no choice but to sign on to a military attack, a blockade. Cuba is just a few minutes from here, when we were growing up as children in St. Mary, up in the mountains of St. Mary, our father used to make we turn on the radio, put it on AM, and make we listen to Cuban station. My grandfather, who we grew up with, I would upon him lap and ask me, "Atite gusta leche?" And then we have to learn from where Pitney to say, "I me gusta leche." I mean, never me gusta leche because me cannot drink leche. But we were learning the language because that grandfather is Cuban. Okay? So, and my story is not unique. We grew up in our house knowing about Cuba and everybody who been to Cuba and who come from Cuba and who going to Cuba tomorrow and who coming from Cuba tomorrow and who going back to Cuba next week. This is the kind of situation, and it was like going to Kingston. For us, it was even easier to get to Cuba than to get to Kingston for many Jamaicans in the early days. So, to know now that we have forgotten, how come, and whether we forgot or not, how can we, in 2026, a neighbor that is just on our doorstep, how can we support such a genocide against Cuba? Because a blockade against Cuba is a genocide on the people of Cuba. We have watched the Haitian genocide unfolding year after year after year, and we have taken the side of the oppressor. We have taken the side of a colonizer. We have taken the side of the imperialist. We have taken the side of empire. And here we are now. The Prime Minister must answer to the warship that is in Jamaican waters, and he must tell us if this has anything to do with Cuba. And the Prime Minister must tell us whether or not Jamaica is getting ready, preparing itself to assist in any military attack on Cuba. But more than that, the Prime Minister must come out and say, what is Jamaica's policy towards Cuba today, with or without the warship? The Prime Minister owes us that. The Prime Minister owes that to the people of Jamaica. I say that without apology. Because we are bearing witness to the genocide. Our sister just talked about maternal mortality. I think this is not a joke business, you know. This is serious business. And here we are, gallivanting and dancing. And every minute we come out with a new dance in Jamaica. Dancing and singing while people die around us, even here in Jamaica. Now we're going to have to shift the paradigm. Come with us today to Rio Nuevo Village as we speak to Muta Baruka about some of these issues. It's going to be we're starting at 12 o'clock. We're talking about all of these issues. How we as a people move from here. What do we need to do? How do we do it? Let us come together and have some of these conversations at Rio Nuevo Village today. It starts at 12, you know. But at 1 o'clock is when the interviews start. Thank you so much. So come from 12. All right. Our critically acclaimed philosopher, and we're saying acclaimed because globally, Muta has been identified as a critically acclaimed philosopher here on the island of Jamaica. We're still pussyfooting around that. It's as if we are not sure what to say about Muta, what to call Muta, you know. But I'm just listening to the lyrics of this, and we quote Amilcar Cabral. As a matter of fact, in this program, where you hear speak truth to the people, that's my sister Tendai, but she is saying the words of Amilcar Cabral. And Amilcar Cabral is a philosopher. We see him as such, and we see him as very critical to the liberation and liberationary processes in Jamaica. So in the world globally. In the same way, we see Muta Baruka as one of those who, if you listen to closely, and you don't have to listen too closely, one of the things we know, and Peter and myself, along with Kimar, we were having this conversation yesterday about just going through the world generally, but going through Jamaica specifically, and meeting young people who can tell you that, and this is young people who are on positive pathways in life, who have chosen to take the positive road, who can tell you that they have been impacted by the philosophies of Muta Baruka, the opinions of Muta Baruka. And this is why today, this is one of the reasons why today we are going to be having this conversation with Muta. You know, Peter, I said to Muta yesterday that Muta, we're going to pick your brain. Muta said, pick my brain. Pick my brain. Okay, do not pick my brain. No, but basically, it really is to say that to we if you listen closer to the poems, of course you hear what you hear. But there's also the need to shift our paradigm, and this is one of the things that we are about when we say 582 Hertz live. It is shifting the paradigm, vibrating at a higher frequency. We feel that Jamaica is vibrating at a very low frequency, and we are at the lowest of frequencies right now, and too many of us are tapped into that low vibrational force. And because we are at that vibrating at that very low frequency and tapped into it, we're all imitating each other like monkeys, right? We are now imitating. So we go around, and it doesn't. You see the dances we're doing? The dances in themselves, nothing wrong, but we don't even listen to the lyrics and the frequencies that we're dancing to. So there's a dance competition, for example, that's out there that is really talking about violence. It's rape. It is rape. But even our children are dancing it, our teachers are dancing, our media, it's a lot of our media people, a lot of our DJs, a lot of our presenters, a lot of people in the civil society, a lot of people are dancing to this because it's a competition and it's out there, and who can dance the best. But when you listen to the lyrics, it's a whole different kettle of tea. So there is that, where this is a vibration, this is a frequency on which we are vibrating. One of the reasons for what we're doing today at the Renova Village is to change that frequency, is to tap into a higher frequency. We start with conversations with Muta Baruka. At 12 o'clock, there'll be a few acoustic performances. Of course, Dale Haslam, Jigsy, as we said before. And, this is so bad of me that I keep leaving out my sister's name. And this is something that we should never do, is to leave out our sister's name. Obviously, as I said before, Professor Vereen Shepherd will be opening the event. Our facilitator is David Wilson, and he will be speaking, giving the welcome and telling you just a little bit of history about the Rio Nuevo Village. As I said before, it's a historical space. And right after that, it's going to be at 1 o'clock that we start the conversation with Muta. The performances start a little before that. And right after that, we go into the conversation. Then the reasonings. And then we will open the floor to, or the grass, because we're on the grassy area where the river meets the sea, to questions from you. Sheena Nicholson is a student at the Edna Manley College. She's a second-year student, and she's formerly from the Steertown High School, Steertown Academy here in St. Anne, and you'll be hearing the acoustic performances from them round about just a little bit after 12, and then after that, by 1 o'clock, we're going into the conversations. All right, so that's happening today at the Rio Nuevo Village in St. Mary. It's 582 Hertz, as we said before. We'll be streaming live. We're streaming on 582 HZ TV. And Roger Hasfall from Memories Hometown Media will be there. He'll also be streaming this live on Memories Hometown Media. And Kimar from Kimar TV, DJ Kimar from Kimar TV, will be streaming, I think. Is he? Yeah. Kimar TV, DJ Kimar TV. So there are 3 different places. We have been sharing the YouTube link on my Facebook pages that you can go tap into. But it's 582 HZ TV. So it's capital H, common Z, capital T, capital V. A lot of people have written into me already from overseas to say, yeah, we're fine it. So thank you so much. A quick break. Interesting, because it's something that we have raised in this space for a while, and we'll tell you a little bit about it this morning. It is a 2026 U.S. counterterrorism strategy, and we've been reading the document. As a matter of fact, I've read the document twice, because I needed to get the first time you read it, you don't normally understand. Not everything anyway. So I read it a second time, the 2026 U.S. counterterrorism strategy, which really presenting a major shift in how I do not know what is causing that disturbance. I can tell you this. I do not know where it's coming from. Peter and myself, we've looked at everything here in the studio. We have done just about everything. Peter, I think our listeners will take it better from you. Do we know where it's coming from? Grab the microphone. Do we have any idea? We've looked at everything technical, right?
Yes, we've looked at everything. It's a mystery.
We've talked to the engineers. We've talked to...
All the engineers. Yeah. They are stumped as well.
We are stumped. So we don't know where to come from. But as long as you're hearing us, we're good. Right? It is what it is right now. So... the 2026 U.S. counterterrorism strategy, this presenting a major shift in how the United States is literally putting out its strategy, counterterrorism, with both Africa and we're seeing kind of ramping up with the Caribbean. So in the document, what we're seeing is we see Africa being framed through 4 different lenses. 1, counterterrorism. 2, strategic competition. 3, burden sharing. And 4, trade link stabilization. And that is happening right now. The strategy more or less underscores that after ISIS, and they say ISIS is destroyed, right? But after ISIS in Iraq and in Syria and so on, and you know what they did. They're saying that the groups leaving Iraq and Syria, that they are now in Africa. Now remember, many years ago, when Barack Obama was in power, I told you that the first person to say ISIS in the Sahel, remember the first time that we started talking about the Sahel is because we heard the term ISIS in the Sahel, and it came from Hillary Clinton. And then we started to do the research, and we did entire programs on how ISIS was created in the Sahel. We also did entire programs on what was the Sahel, because we weren't necessarily saying Sahel at the time. We were saying, whether it's West Africa, East Africa, and so on. And some people were still saying Francophone Africa. But the first time we hear the Sahel, out there as American strategy, and ISIS in the Sahel was under the Obama administration. So now, if you look at the U.S. counterterrorism strategy, the document, reading through the document, they say that ISIS has moved on to several African countries. And the regions that they're looking at, they're saying this is where ISIS is. West Africa, the Sahel, but remember, they created ISIS in the Sahel. And West Africa is still the Sahel, right? So West Africa, the Sahel, Lake Chad Basin, Mozambique, Sudan, and Somalia. We're not going to spend a lot of time analyzing this today. I just wanted to put that out there, that the document specifically names ISIS and Al-Shabaab as major threats on the continent of Africa. These are the areas. This is a 2026 document, so you know what they're going to do, because usually they act upon what they have in these counterterrorism documents, right? It is significant because it marks Africa as one of the principal battlegrounds in the United States counterterrorism strategy.
Tradition.
So, I don't know. Let me turn that off because that's up. But all right. Also, this is also the so-called Middle East is also an area that they say ISIS is, but they're saying that area, and it's interesting because what they call the Middle East, they have included Egypt. So bear that in mind. And they're saying in this that there's less activity in these areas in the so-called Middle East. But they use a term in this document in discussing Africa. They say Africa is ungoverned spaces, quote unquote, ungoverned spaces. They talk about ungoverned spaces in Africa, that they say these ungoverned spaces are incubators for future external attacks against the United States. Do you get what they're putting down? Do you get what they're selling? Ungoverned spaces in Africa are viewed as incubators for future external attacks against the United States. What are these spaces? Who's going to identify these spaces? First, you create chaos. In a lot of the DRC, where all the minerals and the rare earth minerals and everything is at, that's an ungoverned space. You create further chaos in Sudan. That's where the oils and rare earth minerals are. That's an ungoverned space. You're trying to make Tigray, that whole Tigray region of Ethiopia, and parts of Eritrea, ungoverned spaces. You're trying really hard. Ethiopian people and diaspora and African people rose up against that, but you're still trying. And you're trying to name the Sahel, areas in the Sahel. So you launched an attack just recently on Mali. And you're saying that some of these areas are ungoverned spaces. And we could go on, because you know what they're doing. Central Africa, the Central African Republic, they have made that ungoverned spaces long time. So there are 2 flights out of the Central African Republic. They come out of Texas and they go into the Central African Republic. That's been going on for years. I'm not quite sure what the situation is now. So these ungoverned spaces. So Africa, in the U.S. counterterrorism strategy, it has become strategically important. So we're paying very, very close attention because of there is a plot and a plan to cause instability, and then through these unstable or unstable areas, they become ungoverned spaces, and so you have to go in to prevent attacks on the United States. The document, the 2026 counterterrorism strategy, the U.S., and it's not just about Africa, it's Africa, the Caribbean, it's all over the world. So I've read, I've been focusing mainly on Africa and the Caribbean. So basically, for the U.S., the objectives, they say, is to prevent African-based jihadist groups from developing and from developing the capacity to strike American targets globally. That's a big call. And so whereas before they used to talk about nation building, within the document they say that their strategy for now, it rejects nation building. So they're not concerned with nation building in Africa. They say that the U.S. is abandoning nation building. The U.S. is abandoning forever wars. The U.S. wants a smaller military footprint, and the U.S. will avoid large-scale occupation-style interventions. That's basically what they're saying there. And this is what they are proposing. Intelligence sharing, that has started already, because that agreement they signed with Ghana. That's interesting, isn't it? Intelligence sharing, very, very interesting. Partner force development, that has also started already, because we see that also in parts of West Africa, and we're seeing that in parts of Central Africa. Bilateral security cooperation, that has also started already, and this is why Ghana is in the crosshairs. We told you before that Ghana is in the crosshairs because Ghana has signed off on all of these. Targeted strikes. Now this is interesting. Targeted strikes. Somalia has been in this targeted strike thing forever. They bomb Somalia every day, thereabouts. And limited deployments. Of course, AFRICOM is not limited. AFRICOM is a big deal. So this is basically, and this is just to put it in a nutshell, because it's a big document. So it's a newer U.S. military doctrine. We're seeing it in parts of the Sahel. We're seeing it in parts of East Africa. They really are talking about fewer boots on the ground, but they are at the same time talking about more proxies, which we're already seeing, right? Local militaries, intelligence networks, drones, and special operations. This is what is coming for Africa. It has already started. So in practical terms, what we're seeing, the African governments will increasingly be expected to fight insurgencies themselves. The insurgencies that are started by the West, whether it's France, the US, the UK, or the UAE, you name it. The US will provide selective support where that support aligns with America's interest. Okay? And long-term reconstruction and social transformation not on the table. So that is taken off the table. So they're seeing Africa, and we said it a few months ago, it's transactional. It's the same thing for the Caribbean. I have been looking at the Caribbean. As I said, we'll talk about the Caribbean another time, hopefully next week. The U.S. counterterrorism strategy for the Caribbean is really, really important. Trade is linked with security and all of that. And they've been doing this for some time. In the counterterrorism strategy, by the way, they underscore that Christianity is a big part of the U.S. Africa policy. And this is why they are bombing Nigeria, because they say Nigerians are killing Christians. But do you know that the country in the so-called Middle East with the most Christians was Iraq? And the country that's killing Christians is Israel. But they're bombing Nigeria. And they do not care about the Christians in the DRC or the Christians in Sudan. But Christianity, this is serious now, this isn't read the document. Christianity is explicit as part of the U.S. Africa policy. We're talking about Zionism, you know. This is a type of Christianity that is tied to Zionism, that in which Israel, the state, not the Jews, but Israel, the state, is protected. So Israel is also seeking to expand into Africa. Israel is already part of the Africa Union. Observer status of the Africa Union. That's why the Africa Union is also in a crisis. So we have the Africa Union in crisis. We have CARICOM in crisis. We have the United Nations in crisis. So the rules-based order, which wasn't rules-based anyway, but it was propped up because enough people agreed that this is the way we were going. You know how when enough people, groupthink, when enough people agree that this is the way we are going, then it becomes the policy and it becomes right and it becomes true. So enough people agreed that the United Nations was the right thing outside of World War II. Enough people agreed on the Bretton Woods Institution. Enough people agreed on CARICOM. Enough people agreed on the Africa Union. Now we have people the whole system is disintegrating. And the bottom line is that we have to find a way to unite. It's more than ever now the time. Now more than ever. Thank you so much, Esther Figaro and Jet, for the Now More Than Ever campaign. Now more than ever, Africa must unite. Now more than ever, CARICOM must find a way to unite. Caribbean people must find a way to unite, to survive. Now more than ever, our people here in Jamaica must begin to talk about a way to survive. And not just to talk, but to do it. We're going to have some of those conversations today at Renova with Muta Baruka. So join us there, if you will. We take a quick break and we'll come back. You're inside of the Africa Forum. From all over the world, what might be the reason for the disturbance? And we have checked every single one of them. Some we checked before, you said, and it's not that. So we hope that next time we come back, it will be all sorted. In the meantime, we're going to go to our next very, very special guest online. My friend and brother, Kwame McPherson, Commonwealth Short Story Prize 2023 winner. He's no stranger to the program. He co-author of Amazon bestseller, Heart of a Black Man, ghostwriter, content creator, editor, proofreader, and book mentor strategist. A Heinemann Book Publishers Short Story Competition runner-up for short story synopsis. Anna surpass and get him gone. Runner-up is 1994 for the poem Black Angel. He's a Poetic Soul winner and runner-up Poetic Soul 2007 for the poem Her African Beauty. Won first and third place for short story contributions, The Disillusioned Teen and Elmer Fudd Goes Hunting, respectively. He's a writer. He's and a winner of all prizes that you can think of. He's won them and he's still writing. He's currently working on several novellas, including a Western and James Bond type series. He's written short stories. Of also been well received by the University of the West Indies Museum. He's done so much, really. Deep Roots, Strong Tree and Yard Vibes is also his work, and Jamaican Vibrations are also his work. So he joins me, Kwame McPherson, my brother. How are you doing?
Hey, my sister. I'm great, you know. Sorry. Anytime I hear anyone read out all of the accolades, I said, oh, that's so much work, though.
You're looking over your shoulder?
I thought much work, though. But
yes, you've done it. You've done more. I'm sure we haven't mentioned all of them. You've done much more than that. Kwame, you know, it's funny because the last time you were on, we were talking about AI.
Yes.
And how AI was creeping into writing. Yeah. And I expressed my frustration, you expressed your frustration, and we wondered what would become of it. Yeah, and here we are, because a major controversy has emerged around the 2026 Commonwealth Short Story Prize, because now we're hearing allegations that the winning entry, what's it called? The regional winning entry may have been written partially or largely using artificial intelligence.
Yep, I read the story.
Yes,
and the first thing that jumped out at me was, and you can tell it was flooded with metaphors from the very first paragraph, and I'm saying to myself, no man, something right with this. And then I continued reading, but then because it was so filled with metaphors, you lose track of the story. So I didn't know what the story was in the end, personally. That's my view as a writer. I'm saying, no man, something right with this.
So you read it and picked up on something. Yeah. So did you think AI?
I didn't initially, but then I'm saying, why is this? As a writer, you know what I mean, to move a story along, you need to know who the characters are. You know what I mean? You create an emotional attachment, an engagement with the protagonist. From the off, as a picture, I should have really brought it up and read a paragraph. From the off, you know that something not right, because you didn't get deep into who the characters were. You didn't get to understand the thread or the line of the story. And like I said, this is my own personal opinion. And for me, I got lost. And I couldn't get through halfway through the story. I said, no man, something right with this. And then obviously when it was supposedly checked with a software, they can now check any submissions that are made, and you can check whether they're based or not. And based on that check, it came up that it was partially almost completely used by AI writing. So,
but that was after it won. That it was it checked? Do you know if it was checked before or?
I don't know. I don't know if it was checked before.
We were scheduled to have on with you Ramsey Farouk, Director General of the Commonwealth Foundation, but I know he's having internet problems. Right, okay. He's having login problems, and so we're not able to get to him. But if we can, we will. We're still trying.
Yeah.
But he would probably have a better idea of what happened there. Yeah. But Kwame, I mean, how in heaven's name did this happen? Because you read
in the growth, and you should be able to find it and have a read of it yourself.
Read it yourselves and see what you come back with. When we spoke the last time, I said to you that the minute I take up a story or take up a poem or whatever, having worked, because I'm working so closely with this anti-intelligence thing, I recognize the tropes. I recognize, as you said, the metaphors. I mean, people think it's just the M dashes, but it goes much deeper than that. It's not just the M dashes, right?
That's right.
And you talk about the metaphors.
Yeah, but like I said, for my issue with AI is exactly that. It's not emotional. I can't create a human touch or a human connection or engagement. So you can read an AI story and realize that it's an AI story because that element of the story is not infused into it. With this particular story, like I said, it was heavily overdone with metaphors completely. And I was saying to myself, this doesn't sound right, and so it then creates a falsehood of how a story should be written. The creative, it dumbs down the creativity, I believe. Don't get me wrong, AI is good for particular things. And I always say this, to me and for me, AI is good for research and it's good for conceptualizing ideas in terms of story outlines, frameworks, and just asking it random questions on what kind of story to write. But for someone to use it 3/4 or 100% more than what it should be used for, it like I said, it dumps on the creativity and it's lazy.
It is lazy. One of the, it sounds, what it reminds me of. So we had this conversation, Kwame. We had this conversation.
Yeah.
And it's when was it? Mid last year, isn't it? That we had this conversation. So it's like we're asking the same questions again because what we feared, what the ancestors feared, have come to pass.
Yes.
Which is that now we have AI winning a Commonwealth Prize.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's disturbance on the thing, I do not know what to say.
Okay. Yeah, which is, yes, and like I said, it's unfortunate because it dumps on the creativity. You know what I mean? It creates a falsehood,
So can writers work now without AI? I mean, have we gone beyond the point where writers really are going to have to tap into AI or tapping into it because it's easier for some things?
Yes, and that's it's easier for some things, but it's not good for others. So, like I said, for me, I use it for research because it really can, and then obviously your cross-reference because as a good writer, that's what you need to do, especially if you're putting out particular works about particular themes and topics. But it's really good for research and it's really good for conceptualizing ideas, and that's what I use it for. It doesn't, so I use it to create the idea, the outline, but then I write the story. And it can't write like me.
Well, I mean, you're a brilliant writer. I mean, you've won. You've won this prize already, haven't you?
Yeah.
This very same prize.
Yes.
And we're still talking about that story that you're about to O3E, which you're about to turn into a movie. Okay. Right? We're standing by for. We're standing by for that.
I finished the book.
Yeah. It's now a book.
Yeah. I finished the book.
Oh. So, but not published yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
They're talking to an agent to see if they can have it published in the States. So
we're waiting for the book, and you didn't use AI to write that book, did you?
No, I didn't.
Sorry for making joke. Drink some tea, man.
For example, I use Grammarly for fact
You understand?
Mm-hmm. But no AI. No AI in terms of writing the story, but in terms of research, phenomenal. So there's aspects in the book which I use research and which I use AI for.
I get a lot of books to do interviews on, and I'm getting more books now than ever before. I read through. I can know when it's AI, and when it's AI, I put them aside, right?
Yeah.
And then those that I do not recognize as AI, then obviously I read and do the interviews.
Right.
But more and more people are using AI, and there are many published works now.
Yeah.
Published on the shelves that especially textbooks. There are a lot of textbooks that are completely written by AI. Is there a danger in that? Is there a danger in that?
Well, see, the thing with AI is like I said, it's a factual mechanism, i.e., it can do data, it can do structured work, but it can't do creative work. So it's very structured in terms of, it can a textbook, which is very straightforward, really.
And then it does a textbook and it does a workbook, because now everybody who has a textbook also has a workbook, which we don't normally see. But we're seeing that now. So AI is writing from mathematics textbook to whatever. But so where does that leave the brain? And this is why
that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. It dumbs down the thought process. It dumbs down using the brain. You know what I mean? So, and what will happen eventually, I can see happening, that there'll be a lot of over-reliance on AI to create stuff, especially, again, like I said, in writing in general, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. It's just a matter of being aware and being cognitive that whatever's been written doesn't relate to, us as human beings, I would say.
You just said, let me come back to that. Let me take a break. He's done so much, a mentor, a teacher, and we're going to tell you about something he has coming up also. But we're talking about an interesting situation. It's not frightening. It is something that we expected, but it come quicker than we thought. Where we know people are using AI to write, but we didn't know that, an august body like the Commonwealth Prize body, the foundation, that they would not be aware that a book was written by AI and that book has won the regional Commonwealth Prize. Do you know, Kwame, if what are the protocols regarding AI for submission to the Commonwealth Prize?
It is documented that the story should not be AI written in terms of its entirety. Like I said, there's aspects that you can use AI, but not for entire story itself to be written. So there is a directive or instruction that it shouldn't be AI generated, and a majority of competitions now state that, and even Amazon state that, the work shouldn't be AI written, but because Amazon can pick up, obviously they've got software that can actually pick up the algorithm, everything else in regards to an AI being used. So the Commonwealth has that statement.
Didn't they use this software? Because I'm thinking that if you, this is a big deal. It's a Commonwealth Prize.
Yes, it is.
So think that everything would have to be submitted through that channel, through that software.
Yeah, I would have hoped so. But look, like I said, for some reason, somehow, this one was selected. And admittedly, when it comes down to the regions, I don't know if the regions themselves, in terms of the judging, if they have the access to that particular software, so they can read the story and say, okay, so it's fine.
But because, sorry to interrupt you, but this is okay. I go back to, it's a Commonwealth Prize. This is a big deal. No. So what does that say for students in school who are doing SBAs and exams and so on, and are using AI? I have a conversation with my daughter a lot because she's doing A-levels now, it's CAPE, right? And as somebody who was studying online before, we had, obviously you had to go in person for some classes, and some classes were online, you submit online.
Right.
We submitted through a thing called Turnitin, right, for plagiarism and all of that.
Yes.
We won't think about AI, we'll think about plagiarism. And Turnitin will mark, you will literally chuck your paper, even if you quote yourself without saying that you're quoting yourself. Right? And so it was that good. People failed and had to, appeal. But I'm saying that there are systems, from before AI, these systems were in place. These software are in place. So you can, if you are going to run a competition, then shouldn't every single person, I'm running a competition. I'm not the person who's going to put that in, My thing is set up in so that when the entry comes to me, it's coming through that software, so that it used to say it failed before it reached me.
Completely. Like I said, I don't know what the process is in terms of how the Commonwealth does it, but somewhere along the line something was missed, and this one, and in addition to that, I don't know if you've seen the actual photo of the writer who submitted. And I said to myself, when I looked at the photo, I said, but this is an AI picture. You literally can tell
the blue
it's an AI image.
It's an AI image? I never knew that. I didn't see I didn't know it. Well, I'm using AI image out there, so I don't recognize, because all of us using ChatGPT for reports.
I said, but this is an AI image. You can tell. It's an AI image.
So let me ask you this. If that's an AI image, then is a person real, or is this
well, apparently he is,
That is watching you?
And it said that he's a prolific writer, even though he doesn't have one piece of work or something like that. But this is what someone else is telling me, because they've done some research. But his actual image is an AI image. So they have to say, but as soon as you look at this image, you can tell that it's an AI image.
Well, this is interesting. Let you comment. Guess who's outside? You never believe it. I'm interrupting you to tell her, can we just get a piece of paper? Look here. And you will see. Listen, but I didn't realize it was an AI image.
Yeah. Like I said, if you see
are you sure that this person is a real person?
If you look at the article that were written, and you see the image of the writer, and then you'll see you can tell it's an AI image of the writer. But like I said, in terms of, so I don't know if it's an actual completely AI person in terms of, or there you go. See,
I find this even. That's the image for those who are looking at, those who are watching the YouTube and Facebook stream. Oh, so Peter, you said that's an AI.
Yeah, man. There's no an AI image.
Yeah, I didn't look at it properly. But here's the thing. So what happens now? Where do we go from here?
This is why we.
Well, why I don't know. I don't know what the Commonwealth is going to do, because it has more or less thrown a spoke into the wheel. What's going to happen next in terms of regards to this? So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Everybody,
if they're going to have someone else, read it, or I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. That's a question for the foundation, But like I said, if you read the first, like I said, I saw the story that was the story came up, that the search was done on the story. If you read the very first paragraph or the first two paragraphs, you immediately see how heavy-handed it is in regards to the metaphors, and you can tell.
At midnight,
you can tell, immediately that no man, and then throughout the entire story, filled with metaphors.
And this is basically how it is. And even with the poems that people are writing, AI has a standard meters.
Exactly.
The meters.
Especially when it comes to creative writing.
Yeah.
Because it cannot write creatively.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I said before, it's inability to have that humanness.
Yes.
To create an emotional engagement and attachment and take the character arcs and all that kind of stuff. It can't do that in regards to.
As a writer, what is your advice? Professor Vereen Shepherd, before you answer the question, our friend is here. Professor Vereen Shepherd, please come on this way.
Okay.
You're so ready for the camera. I mean, this is, here's the camera. Prof. Yeah. Yes, so as a writer, what is your advice?
My advice is, like I said, we probably won't be stopping people writing using AI to write. Right, my advice would be, as somebody who, if you love writing,
yes,
then it comes from within. It's something that comes from the heart. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's, and if you have a story to tell, especially creatively, you have a story to tell, then tapping into that part of who you are,
right,
and then telling a story, enriches the story and gives it life.
We're going to have to invite you to come to some creative workshop right here, so. Because so many people using AI. I tell you, me get the poems, me get them. Me get the books, I have them. And I know it's AI. And you can't look at my face and tell me it's not AI. I mean, I know. I don't have to put it through no system. And we have another writer here, Prof, who's a prolific writer of textbooks. I was just talking about textbook, Prof. Peter, I'm going to take a Prof on. But look here, but she's right beside all of my co-authors. So we can put the microphone right there and give Prof some camera. Yeah, all right. So because we mentioned textbook before, and as somebody who's a prolific writer of textbooks, the first time I interviewed Professor Vereen Shepherd, me tell her all the while, me literally shaking my boots because we were using her books in high school.
Right.
me couldn't manage that thing of talking to the author of the book, you understand? And so when we started the Running African Book Club, the first book we did was Caribbean's, the big one, Caribbean Slave in the Atlantic World, the big one. And I mean, that was quite something. That was the first book in the Running African Book Club. We were talking about other books, but the very first one that we did as a group. And this is quite interesting, Vereen, because, welcome.
Thank you so much. I just popped in. Sorry not to give you a warning.
Oh, I'm very happy that you're here. Very, very happy. And we're heading straight to Upside, we're done, to River Village. That's very... Kwame, what are you doing in Kingston, by the way? I know Arsenal lost last night, but what are you doing there?
I'm going to Amina's thing like this afternoon, a little theatre.
Oh, so, okay, so you get over that. You get over the Arsenal loss?
Sure. I have actually. It is what it is. Football.
Yeah. So, Vies, we're talking about...
I saw the match.
You saw the match? Mm-hmm. You're Arsenal too?
Yeah.
Poor thing. Pobrecita. is quite something.
At least I win the league, so I'm fine with that. I'm cool.
You're good.
Yes, you're a good team.
Yeah. And, well, here. I mean, I'm here. I mean, I'm Ferrari. It's F1, Hamilton. All right. So, I'm sure you heard about it, VS. And by the way, excellent program yesterday.
Thank you.
Right.
Wanting to go back to Arsenal. I was.
You want to go back to Arsenal?
I was thinking that they're going to blame the two black guys who missed it.
Oh, that's what happened.
But you know, Arsenal haven't got to that height for the longest a while. So I just give them. It is what it is.
Is anybody want me know who
I don't remember their name.
Okay. Eze and Gabriel, both of them missed.
Oh, okay. Because I'm going to ask for Saka. You know something I don't know what go on.
No, Saka was substituted. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you see they're going to blame. Well, England will blame the black guys. I mean, England.
That's why I'm saying that.
Yeah, there's a lot of black players
in the UK.
Okay, I'm seeing you now, so that's what I was waiting just to see you on camera. So VS, you would have heard, I'm quite sure, about the AI winning the prize.
Yeah,
the Commonwealth Prize.
I was like, what? But the thing is that it's. Some of the stories that are online now, I can tell that it's AI generated. For example, I would say, I am. When they say that, they say im. So the pronunciation, so it's they can tell. Yes. And he's, H-E apostrophe S, they say Hess.
Oh. So you
can kind of pick up.
Yeah, the little things. Kwame was saying that as a writer, he uses AI, but for research and sometimes to generate ideas.
For research, but I don't go beyond that. For example, I think I wanted to know something about the apology of the Pope, right? And I just put in something to see, what people are saying, or what they come up with. And so I just do it for like information, but not to use in my speeches or to write, for any of my writings. No, it's just like when you Google information.
Right. Yeah.
And when you Google information, sometimes it's AI information that comes up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And AI is interesting because it will always agree with you.
And, in some of the schools, my friend in South Africa was telling me they're allowed to use a percentage of AI-generated material in their essays, but just a small percentage. If they go beyond that, they're in trouble.
Let me take a break. Viren, we're having a continuous disturbance on the program, and I do not know what is causing it.
I heard you saying that. Right, I was listening as I was coming along.
Yeah. Let me take a quick break.
Okay.
It's getting worse, actually. So let me just ask you, Kwame. So in terms of what you know, right?
Yeah.
Because I know you have an in. Are they going to pull this, or are they just going to let it be?
I don't know. Funny enough, I had a discussion with them yesterday because they called me and asked me about my opinions on it. No reference was made in regards to the story and whether they're going to put it or not. So, who's to tell? We'll see.
It breaks the rules. So, go to your next one.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. They'll probably do their investigation and come up with like I said, for me, reading the story, and if you get a chance, just have a look and you'll see immediately that something right.
I'll read it. I didn't read it, but I'll go and read it and we have another conversation.
Yeah, there's something right with it. Like I said, too filled with metaphors right throughout till you lose the thread of the story. You don't even know who the characters are. Nah.
So, Anyway, thank you so much, my brother. Thank you, Kwame.
Anytime.
My condolences to you on the loss.
Yeah, so I got football in him,
There you go. That's the spirit. And look what they did with Paris last night.
Yeah, and see, and they won. Can you imagine if they lost? Oh, they're born on the place.
That's what I thought. I thought they lost. So what is this? Fire everywhere.
Yeah. I'm so glad the Arsenal fans were involved. Without saying that, Arsenal fans aren't like that anyway. But
it's hooliganism.
Can you imagine if they did lose?
Hooliganism. Yeah. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you, my sister.
My person. All right. All right. And so we're going for one disappointed Arsenal fan to another disappointed Arsenal fan. But we're here to comfort, to give any kind of comfort that we can to Professor Vereen Shepherd, and especially because she's going out to Rainbow Village and she's going to open this event. Prof, thank you so much again for coming in and coming early. You see, Professor is early. She's going to be at the venue shortly.
I don't like to be late for anything. I prefer to be an hour early.
We're not hearing you so well. Let us set Prof's mic. Just bring it to. I can't even have to ask nobody if it's set it because she's a presenter.
Okay.
She's a broadcaster herself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was saying that I don't like to be late for anything.
No, I know you're Muta like, so this is going to be quite an interesting thing because you're always on time. Muta is always on time, so it doesn't matter. We're going to be on time. We say that the proceedings on stage in terms of the welcome, the opening of the event, and going straight to Muta. That's going to start at 1. The Dale Haslam and Jigsy and a sister from Edna Manley will be performing at 12, just a little bit after 12 o'clock, and then we go straight to and I'm doing something very wrong that I have to correct. Shanae Nicholson is our sister, right, who is going to be performing, and I keep saying our sister from Edna Manley, so Shanae Nicholson. Vereen?
So when you said 12 or 1?
Yeah, 12 for the, yeah. So we were always giving 2 times to say that Muta, the interview is at 1, that we start there at 1 and then. But for those persons who are going to be early, the on stage and on gazebo, because it's a grassy area, we're just on a gazebo. These activities in terms of the acoustics and so on, that will be 12:15.
And my time is when?
1.
1, okay,
yeah.
good.
So so she's doing the Muta thing. So Muta called me last night and he said, listen, we say we're ending at 4, right? So I said, yes. He said, okay.
Yes, I heard you stressing that.
Yes,
morning.
And we had that conversation, and then the phone rang again. It was 4 o'clock, right? I said, yes, Muta. So Vereen, I mentioned earlier, and I know you mentioned it yesterday on your program also. You did a whole thing. I'm very happy you're here so we can have a conversation because I dismiss it. I suppose you understand it much more than me because I heard what France has done.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard you talking about the other thing from the British High Commission and the grant of the money. And,
yes.
And Lloyd's. I was very interested in the whole conversation about Lloyd's. Lloyd's of London versus Lloyd's Registry, because I wasn't sure about the distinction, and I wanted to clarify the distinction for people.
And that was very well done. I think, and once again, I send people to your program, which is Talking History. It is still up. Just go listen. These conversations, we're not supposed to miss them. So go and listen to that conversation. But unless you want to do a quick pre-say on what was done.
Yeah, because the thing is this. There was a clear effort to separate the registry, Lloyd's Registry, from Lloyd's of London. And Lloyd's of London would have been a part of that consortium that insure the slavers, right, that go to collect our people. Lloyd's Registry is the one that certified that the slaver was okay to go pick up people, right? And transport them. So I wanted to clarify that because to me it sounded as if the Lloyd's Register people want to distance themselves from the trafficking, right? But I'm saying if your role is to say, yeah man, this ship is okay to go and pick up people and traffic them, to me, you're still involved. You're involved.
And then Lloyd's is Lloyd's.
Yeah, and yes. So they're all part of the coffee shop,
right,
and they're all there in one. And by the way, Professor Ahmed Reid reminded me, as I was talking to him this morning, that he did the question he asked was whether any of the agents working for the registry, Lloyd's Registry, had any other role in the trafficking. And it turns out that some of them were insurers as well. You know, they were still involved in Lloyd's of London, even though their primary role. And then some of the agents were actually located in Africa.
And that makes a lot of sense when you think about it, you know. Yes.
And my third question was whether the Zong was, you know, whether that was inspected and so on and so on. It turns out that the Zong belonged to the Dutch and the British seized it. So under the Dutch it was called the Zorg. And then I think mispronunciation by the British, it turned up as Zong, right? And so it wouldn't have been certified by the registry, but then others were. So to me, they all mix up in the thing.
Yeah, it's all one and the same. So where does this money go? I mean, how does it work? Because
I think people have to apply to the fund, and some you know would have been already disbursed. I know a couple of the people who have gotten grants. I don't want to say their name on the air, but I think that they're going to have another call. So, especially for independent researchers, independent scholars, people who are not attached to a university now or something like that. Okay, so I think people can still listen out. People who are researchers, can listen out still. Yeah.
And then the other thing that you discussed yesterday, also in your program, is France has gone out, and I mentioned it this morning, but this visit, France has gone out and say that they're repealing some law. They Code Noir.
Now, for our students of history, I'm asking them to go and read Elsa Gavaya's work on the quote-unquote slave. You know, I don't like to use the word slave, but I'm just quoting from the title of the article. The slave laws of the British Caribbean, not the British Caribbean, slave laws of the Caribbean. Slave laws of the Caribbean, right? And in her article, she deals with the siete partidas that covered the Spanish colonized parts of the Caribbean. The Code Noir covered the French colonized part of the Caribbean. And then the British was a hodgepodge because Governor Morley Ford, you know, he was in Barbados. The Barbados had the first slave code in 1661, and that was applied across the British Caribbean with some modification, with various modifications, right? But from what I've looked at on paper, and maybe even in application, they were all the same, right? Whatever the clauses were, the intention was to deem our ancestors non-people, non-persons.
Right.
They were property, and because they were property, anything could be done to them because they don't have any feelings, right? So there could be families are disrupted, they could be beaten, raped, you know, sold abroad, sold within the country. I mean, it was just despicable. And I actually just wrote an article in which I was looking at Gavaya's work. Elsa Gavaya, who was a professor of history, she was Guyanese, and she worked at UWI. And so repealing the Code Noir, okay, maybe it's a historical act. It's an act. It means that it's not on the books anymore. And actually, a lot of people realized it was on the books.
That it was still on the books?
Exactly. Can you imagine?
How dare you?
Can you imagine that years after 1848, when the French abolished chattel enslavement in the Caribbean, the Code Noir still existed, saying that the property aspect of chattel enslavement was still on the books. We are lucky that they didn't have no right-wing persons applied it in the interim, you know?
Well, that's a point, because what did they do in so-called Francophone Africa?
Exactly.
And you saw Macron's behavior in Kenya the other day.
He
thinks that Kenyans are less than him.
Yes.
Excuse me, give me the mic. Oh, shut your mouth. You talk too much.
I don't understand why the ranking game still continues to operate in relationships between Europe and the Caribbean and Africa. But we have to stand up and say no. We have to, as happened.
Yes.
I heard you saying that you're not going to the conference in Ghana, but I've got an invitation.
I wasn't even sponsored yet. I was seeking sponsorship to go.
Right.
And I figured we could get sponsorship to go. So I know Nicholas Evans is listening. So Nick, we say Vereen is going, Professor Shepherd is going.
I am going because if Macron is going to be there, I want to be. I mean, let me not say.
It's next month, isn't it?
I know that. It's like 2 weeks' time, right?
Yes, June.
But
second week.
They're having 3 prep meetings online ahead of that, and I think maybe Jamaicans already know that I was one of the 2 consultant historians on the technical team.
I don't think a lot of Jamaicans know that. So make we spend some time talking about that.
Yes, well, out of the blue, I just got this invitation to go to Accra in January.
Oh, you were in Accra, that's true.
Yes. And they were assembling a technical team to assist the government of Ghana to understand the history behind reparations. So you had the legal people, right? You had those who were looking at African jurisprudence to counter what the Europeans call intertemporality. Intertemporality is the law of the time, which is why Britain abstained from the vote. The UK was one of those. All the EU.
All the EU,
yes. In 52 countries abstained from that vote on March 25. But to backtrack, so the legal people were there to show that Africans had forever said it was wrong. That the chattel enslavement of Africans and trafficking, that was wrong. So they were there looking at African jurisprudence, right? And then the historians were to come up with the justification for reparations and why this resolution was important. Now, there was a lot of angst because, people from CARICOM were saying, well, we were first and blah, blah, blah. But okay, somebody
that's behind the scenes. I can imagine that would have gone on behind the scenes. And because I think we asked a question too, say, Ghana, why not the CARICOM reparations?
Yes, with their 10-point plan from 2013, and Africa was behind in terms of coming on board. But they did, and they took it. They took the step. But what they had to do was to lobby to get support in the UN General Assembly for the vote to go through. So I must say, CARICOM was on board. If you look at the list of countries, the 123 that voted yes, you will see the name Jamaica, and you will see the other CARICOM countries.
And even beyond the names that voted, that behind the scenes in terms of technical consultancy, that you were one of the
I was there in the middle of the thing, and through serendipity, I think Ghana was very smart. What they did, so they assembled a technical team of lawyers and historians. We met in Ghana and in Accra, but then we met online like forever, every day until the voting, And 2 days before the voting, we were flown to New York to continue. And then the president organized a high-level conference, a high-level seminar, in New York. So that's the day before the vote. And on the day of the vote, it was the International Day for the Elimination. Well, the 21st was the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And the 25th, the International Day to remember the victims of trafficking. And as soon as the celebration of that or the commemoration of that was finished, then the vote. So it was very strategic. How do you come out of that commemoration and then vote no?
But a lot of people abstain.
Yeah.
Well, because and then abstaining is just as bad as voting no. But they abstained for a reason. You kind of touched on it just now.
I was so happy for that the UK sent up a representative to say why they abstained. That is historical information that we now have. But yes, 3 countries voted no. The USA, Argentina, and Israel. But that's understandable. And then 52 52 abstained, including the 27 members of the EU. And then Cyprus was chosen to go up and say why the EU abstained. But the UK itself sent its ambassador in New York to say why.
And what is the why?
Goodness. 2 essential reasons. One, they support the law of intertemporality. That is, it was legal at the time, and so they were going on international law at the time, which who made, by the way?
They themselves.
And the second one is that they don't believe that reparations is due. They don't believe that, that there's any claim, legal reasons for the claim for reparations, because chattel enslavement and the trafficking, quote unquote, were legal at the time. So those are the two main reasons. Yeah.
What does that do?
But I have it on record now.
Well, yes, and I see that you that's significant, obviously, because over the years they've always, whether with Anthony Gifford taking this thing to the House of Lords, that whole document that came out when they just rejected that whole thing, the work that the Reparations Commission has done over the years, when Charles come, when William come, when whoever come to Jamaica, and they stopped just short of even apologizing.
And even one of the High Commissioners, he was very anti-reparation and in our space.
Yes.
This is the thing, though. People have no respect for us because you're in our space, and you can just come out as if he can just come out and say.
Well, Cameron did. Cameron said, "Get over it already," and he was in Parliament.
This is the thing.
He said that in Parliament,
right?
Where you can't speak patois or touch a mace.
Can you imagine? So it's. I think we need to. But you see, you're right.
Our condition.
We take it. Some of us.
Yeah, but Vies, Vereen, so this is very interesting because moving on from here, obviously it's a call for reparations. It's beyond the apology. No, you've apologized. Reparations, and France.
You don't even have to. It's not a sequential thing.
No, it's not sequential. I mean,
no,
right? But
whether you apologize or not, it's due.
I suppose we're at the place where, like the song Muta do a poem about it too, the old time Pentecost could never get weary yet. We're just going to have to continue.
We have to continue.
What about the gains? Because since you've entered the space, when and where you entered, a lot has happened, a lot has been changed. I mean, you've made phenomenal strides.
Well, I'm glad you recognize it, but I don't think everybody does.
Everybody recognizes it.
I'm not saying so.
They probably don't say it, but they do.
Off the air, I will tell you who don't recognize it.
They're just not saying it. It's a narcissistic thing.
Anyway, you and I have been in this forever. And you remember when we discovered that we were from Hopewell?
Just by Africa. You from Africa.
Different side of the big plantation.
And Africa connected us.
Yeah. So, we have to give respect to our ancestors, though, who were on that plantation. The Grants owned Hopewell, the whole of Hopewell plantation, whether your side or my side.
With the Grants?
The Grants, and then...
But what about the Beckfords? Because...
The Grants died, and the mortgage was held by the Hibberts. So the compensation for Hopewell plantation was claimed by the Hibberts.
Oh,
yes.
The Hibberts
and descendants of that same family still exist and live in England.
Yes.
And I've had conversations with them.
Okay.
Yeah. So 428 Africans were there. And so, I always think about it. Men and women and children.
So where were the Beckfords? Because...
They had other plantations in St. Mary.
Maybe adjoining plantations.
Yes. But certainly my part was mortgaged to the
Grants. So Hopewell Pen and Hopewell
Hopewell Pen,
that whole area.
It was Hopewell plantation. Right. I actually got the list, and it was great to meet somebody from the National Archives.
Yes.
That person, Philippa, she was in Jamaica as well for the Association of Caribbean Historians Conference.
Yes,
that's why they were here. And I was telling her how useful I found the Q archives, but we also need free copies, digitized copies of those documents in our own archives, because we don't have as much as they do, obviously. And the good thing is that they are going to give some money to help the archives to preserve their documents, because we have been saying forever that our archives right now is in a kind of mess to me, not like when I was researching there. So
and you also found your great
yes, grandfather,
yes,
Alexander Mighty. So I have the returns of the registration of slaves, that's the documents are called now, and I'm going through, with Professor Ahmed Reed's help, I'm going through the St. Catherine list to try to see if I can find him. He was born in 1829. So then The trafficking was abolished in 1807, slavery, chattel enslavement, 1838. He was born in 1829, which means he wouldn't have gone through apprenticeship. It would have been below 7, right? But I'm still trying to find out, like, who was his mother, because they were, say, born off.
Right.
So I'm going through that now. But yes, in terms of reparation, you and I have been in it like forever. You know, and remember all the work we did in 2007, putting up the Zong monument, the monument.
It was from 2005 to 2007.
This is true. This is true. Yes, so we have been there forever. So it's expanded. Back to your original question. There's no doubt that the fight for reparation, the understanding of it and the justification, that has expanded. You know, the CRC, the CARICOM Reparations Commission, has 15 countries with their chairs make up that, plus the overall chair, the 3 vice chairs. And then the good thing, associated members are also part of the CRC, because they have no choice. They are lobbying for independence. Like Bonaire, Saint-Martin, Curaçao, they are all lobbying for independence, but they're not independent. And they're saying, well, who speaks for us? So the CRC has embraced, and you have all these national committees. So I think we have come a long way.
Yeah.
And some people are paying, not enough, but they are making a gesture, let's say. But we are still continuing the fight.
What is the response of the public now? Because I remember you were gauging that, and I think you did surveys,
a mini
focus
poll.
groups, and so on.
Yes.
On this, and this is something that you understood that you had to do public education to change how people felt about it. And are you seeing a change?
And the last Gleaner poll had, from what I can remember, it was about the Queen and so on, and you gauge that as well. And it had, improved in terms of public awareness and so on. But I'm going to speak to Don Anderson to find out if it's time to do a reparation poll. I don't know. I think the awareness is widespread in Jamaica and across the Caribbean.
Yeah, on the back of Ghana, the vote, what's going to happen in Ghana.
And even before that, the UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Listen, Cabo, when I joined in 2016, the R word, as I call it, was a bad word. Answered, I have to say.
Yes.
I continued to hammer it, and right now we're elaborating what we call a general recommendation on reparations.
Well, what a way to invite Mr. Bigay to come in.
Howdy.
We love him t-shirts, manners and
manners.
Oh, there you go.
Manners
and manners.
Oh, manners.
Manners and manners.
I didn't see the first word, the first letter. Oh, good.
So, Vereen, we're heading now. So, Bigay, I know you're going to be on air when Vereen and myself heading up to so on. But you can check us when we're going up to Rainy River Village.
Oh, no, of course.
Yeah, so
582 hertz. How is it?
582 hertz.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
That's a frequency. We're all tuned in on that.
There you go. There you go. So, so when you finish, stop by.
No, sure. You have lunch?
Okay, David, Bigay need lunch too. Put your name on the list. All right, so this is how we're going to wrap for today. The Bigay's in. Vereen, thank you so much for stopping by. We're heading straight now.
And I stopped by unexpectedly and disrupt your entire show.
I know, no disruption. No disruption. It flowed nicely and seamlessly into where we are now. Thank you so much, my sister. And I know Kwame doesn't mind that we cut it short, because we had 2 persons scheduled for this interview, and one, the director of the Commonwealth Foundation, had technical problems all morning. So there you go.
There we go.
It's not here.
The ancestors.
It's a frequency. Yeah, Mom.
The ancestors decided that is how it was going to go. So
exactly.
Very happy. It's a long time I've been in your studio.
Yes, it's a long time.
You've
been on it. Last time you come, we take a picture right here. So.
And I was in that glass compartment.
You were over there.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So thank you so much.
Looking forward to later.
Thank you so much, VS. We're heading to, right now we're heading to Renewable Village. Join us there for 582 Hertz. Mutabaruka is on the way. Muta is never late. Vereen is never late. So here we are, heading there now. And we're operating like radio people. Radio people, I don't know. Don't give us a time because we're going to be there for the time.
For the time.
No, sir. That's true. That's how we behave. I think, especially when you're in it for a long time. I suppose, Vereen, is it radio that made you so time sensitive, or?
No, I don't think so. It's just our training from when we were little.
Is Africa?
Yes. My mother, everybody get up. Everybody get up. School time.
Yeah,
get ready.
there you go.
Yeah, man, you know,
I have to do your chores before.
Yeah, of course.
Because you had chores?
Of course.
Like what?
Come on, no. I'm a country boy.
Okay.
Chores must be somewhere in the.
You have to go for water.
Go for water. Yeah. Go catch water.
Times I had to.
Go catch water, yes. We should go for water.
Go for water.
We go for water them days.
Sweep up the yard.
There you go, yes. Sweep up the yard, go for water, sweep up the kitchen.
Sweep up the kitchen.
Okay, go for egg.
Yes.
Right, yes.
Yes, feed the rabbit.
Feed the rabbit. Right. Oh, yeah, this is really true.
Yes.
Oh, I can relate to all of it.
And then I had to walk to school.
Oh,
you
yes.
can't be late for school.
No, exactly. You're on time.
What is strange, you know, is that the very same distance that I walked to school and I took it for nothing.
Right.
Walk to school, walk come home for lunch, walk go back to school.
Taxi.
Walk home from school, walk
Taxi.
back to for PE,
Yes.
right, for extracurricular activities. These kids have to take taxi.
You have to take taxi, yes. It's the same thing.
I mean, what I do 3 times a day is a problem.
The thing
They
though,
do not
the thing
conceive.
Though, the thing though, I wouldn't like our children, especially
walk
little
the way.
ones, to be walking now.
The way we walk,
The way
right?
we walk, because it's not safe.
Yeah, we used to all walk through shortcut.
Yes,
Yes.
but the things that we walked in a group though.
Yes.
We walked in
For
a
the
group.
most part.
But they were predators around still.
Yes, yes.
You know? And we
There were pedophiles in every district.
I know. I'm telling you.
Our parents wouldn't tell us that they were pedophiles, just to stay away from so and so.
Exactly.
And if you stop at
Exactly.
do not.
Yes.
This is how it was. So we
in
kind of.
my neighborhood, it was a village that raised up the children.
Right,
So,
yes.
On every stop of the way,
Yes.
there was an elder somewhere across
Right.
the way that
Yeah, they were
Protective.
monitored you all the way to
Yes, there were some elders who really they
Yes,
looked out
yes.
for us and protected us.
Yeah.
And when
Because
rain
you're
fall, we can't
your
forget
relative,
we
Miss
can't forget-
Elsie.
Yeah.
Who you going to talk about? Because I'm talking about Miss Elsie.
Over in Penn, yes.
But that is the same Miss Elsie that we used to
Yes,
stop
Miss
at.
Elsie. But in our
Miss Elsie
part,
used to
there
feed,
was,
eat 2
there was
times a
Miss
day.
May. I can't forget Miss May.
Yes.
When rain falls, she used to say, "Come inside, man." But
That's Miss Elsie for
yes,
us. Yeah.
yes, and give us something.
Yeah. Did you have a Miss May or Miss Elsie?
No. There
Oh, because you're boy
Ruby,
picking man.
and
Oh,
there was
oh.
a Mr. Fleming.
Okay.
Okay.
who-
There was Mr. Brown,
Yeah, man.
and there was Miss May
Yeah.
for us.
Mr. Fleming would give us extra sweetie when we stop.
Yeah. Well, bulgur and curry chicken,
I used to
Miss
hate
Elsie.
I used to hate bulgur. You see,
Why?
we used to get free lunch at school at Dean Penn Primary.
Right.
Cheese,
Oh, cheese.
cheese, and I don't know where them used to come from. Mostly England.
Government,
or something.
the government ration.
Bulgur. Only as an adult.
My mouth is watering for the bulgur because Miss Elsie used to cook nice bulgur.
Well, maybe the school bulgur in the canteen wasn't so good.
Okay.
I used to hate bulgur. The cheese I loved.
Bulgur too. But that used to be compensated by the milk powder. You used to get
Milk powder.
milk powder
Yes.
in the box.
In the powder.
Powder.
Right.
Right.
Yes,
But don't
milk
pit the
powder.
eat off before they reach home.
Milk powder, milk powder, free milk powder,
Free milk powder, yeah.
and free lunch. We used to get free lunch at Dean Penn Primary School.
Yes. So they don't do free lunches anymore?
I have no idea.
I don't think so because Nia had to pay right through school.
Yeah.
Even
know.
now. So
I don't
free
know what
lunch.
happens. No.
So but anyway, what a good memory lane. From the gay time.
But you know, one of the reasons I appreciate this little conversation we're having is that there are people who, what the song say? Then say the glamour and the glitter
And then take a better
rose.
Who feels it knows?
Yes.
It's true.
We
Yeah.
come from far.
Oh yes.
And it's by sheer determination
Yes.
and support from the village, and my father had to borrow book, the fee for St. Mary's School.
Oh, you remember those St. Mary
know,
School days? I'm telling you.
So,
And you had to pay for
you're
St. Mary
young,
High.
You never
we never really
go
paid for
Mary
St.
School when I was going to St.
Yeah,
Mary's
we never
School.
paid for St. Mary High, but thank you for clearing the way so that when we go in, have to pay.
Yeah, we had
So
to
something
pay.
happened
We had
there.
to- we had to pay.
You know,
Yeah.
the strangest thing in all of this is that Ernest Smith has a song that says, "We didn't know we were poor."
Right, yes, we didn't know we were poor.
We were not contemplating.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
We were just not contemplating.
We never think.
I think.
We just.
And my mother was
true.
even helping out girls. There were some people who were not sending their girls to school. They were sending their boys to school. And my mother was like, what?
Yes.
And she said, I will pay the school fee. Because my mother was a dressmaker.
Yeah.
My father was a tailor and a banana farmer.
Yes. And your auntie was a dressmaker because she made all my uniform for Miss Effie.
Yes.
For St. Mary High School.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So
we're almost cousins.
We're not even know, so we're connected.
Yes.
We're separated by a river.
Yes, just by the river.
By the river.
Oh, you're from St. Mary?
Yes, of course. That's St. Mary we come from.
You should have known where St. Mary we come from.
But we were protected. But I think one of my worst experiences, though, going to school, because we had to walk, and I was a prefect at St. Mary's School for the class and so on, and we couldn't afford. So many of us as children, we couldn't afford bus fare, so we used to walk.
Yes.
And I don't know what happened that morning that I was late for school, and the teacher, I mean, I'll call her name, but me never chat to her since then.
No, call her name. Even now?
So
can I do may I mediate so you can bridge up?
Me not say who, but
I know it too.
Insulted me. And I think they took away my prefect badge because I was late that morning and I was a prefect. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't take bus. I did not bus fare.
They took your badge.
Yes. That teacher, wicked woman.
Yes, and you have quite a... That's another conversation, because we have to talk about that. They don't know they
scar you for life. That is why I was when I became a teacher, I was so careful. These are precious human beings whose lives you're trying to influence. And right now, even as a lecturer, when I was teaching at UA and so on, a lot of them are my friends now. Ahmed Reed, I thought Ahmed, look at how Ahmed has become my research partner, kind of thing,
Yes.
No, I was very kind to my students. I couldn't, some of them I see at the airport, I see them I'm so proud of so many of them, but as teachers, we have to be sensitive. I hate when I hear people, go home because you're late or whatever.
It's
Come on.
And take your badge for something that
woman, I'm telling you.
Sure. Leave it. All right, Mr. Big A, it's over to you.
All right.
Big A, is that a turntable? Get on it.
Am I in a chair? Am I forget to?
No, you're not in a chair. Over here, I work for. Let me.